weight management. It also improves your microbiome. We do that by several ways. One, there's an ingredient in there that stimulates a greater diversity. And the other one is prebiotics, FOS and GOS, that help feed the good bacteria, gentrify your microbiome. So, Bella Trim, comprehensive. Enjoy it.
To learn more about Bella Trim and other Bellagrace products, visit melissahousebg.com.
This is Brannon House Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon House.
And welcome to the broadcast on this March 28th, 2025. It's a Friday night. We are going to be joined tonight by Senator Bob Hall of Texas. There is a very peculiar story playing out he was telling me about today. And you may say, what do I care? I don't live in Texas. Well, I think what he's going to describe to you could be going on in other states. The lottery tickets, the lottery system down there in Texas. There's something really funny going on, and he says it's a massive criminal operation. A massive criminal operation has penetrated their state lottery system. It is worthy of a movie. It may get a little deep at times. He's going to lay it all out because he's the one that kind of began to bring a lot of coverage to this with hearings, and now the Texas Rangers have taken over, he told me. So we'll go to that conversation with State Senator Bob Hall here later. But you need to stay tuned for this, because after we lay down some of the facts, and then we're going to flesh out where this is going, I think we may find that there could be drug cartels laundering money. Could the deep state or the CIA be involved? Just asking questions. Or maybe it's just drug cartels. Maybe it's just mafia. Maybe it's just organized crime. You're not going to believe what you're going to hear. He was telling me about it on the phone today. I also want to talk to him about those mosques going up in Texas. All this Sharia, Islamic law. Let's ask the State Senator Bob Hall his thoughts on all of that. Joining me also is going to be Annie Cyrus. Let's talk about Iran. The people of Iran who want to be free. They want to be liberated. Let's talk about an option that President Trump should consider that involves the son of the former Shah. The former Shah of Iran involves his son. Something that should be being talked about. How about if America strikes Iran with Israel? What does she think would happen in the U.S. with all the terror cells here? We'll ask her. She was born and raised in Iran. She'll weigh in tonight. Now, I taped an interview yesterday with Michael Weiner and Wes Peters on private equity firms. It looks like, you guys remember the big bust up in 2008, right? Well, private equity, here's an article right here. Private equity firms tighten stranglehold on U.S., angling for boons under Trump. Private equity has fingers in our homes, hospitals, jobs. How have private equity firms gotten involved with retail businesses, retail stores? Some of them, which, by the way, are like 97% profitable. Their stores are 97% profitable, but all of a sudden they're filing bankruptcy. How does that work? Could it be adjustable rates? How are the equity firms being greedy, putting these companies at risk? But how is it that some of these packages for these investments have been sold to pensions? How many of you are holding a pension tonight? How many of you are prepared for your pension to go completely belly up? Because your pension was loaded up with these packages that's got a lot of bad debt that's not profitable because maybe of adjustable rate mortgage, adjustable rate interest. Deals that were put together by private equity firms. We're going to keep it very basic, very basic. But this is a very, very important interview that I pre-taped yesterday with Wes Peters and Michael Weiner. Something a lot of people are not talking about, but should be. Because these private equity firms, apparently they are now into our retail stores. They're into our doctor's offices, dentist offices, plumbing businesses, HVAC. So if this becomes an issue where you see a collapse like 2008, it's going to impact everybody. Could impact a lot of us at least, who aren't even invested in pensions, don't have pensions. Just with the businesses it could impact. Then what about all those folks depending on that pension check every month? We'll get to that. I have another article. Don't blame the shrimp. How private equity is bankrupting America. Now I know some of these people say, well, these are just a bunch of socialists, a bunch of, anti-capitalist. Well, some of them might be. Here's another one. The secretive industry devouring the U.S. economy. Yeah, I'm not saying all these people that are writing these articles are like, great entrepreneur, pro-capitalist people. But it doesn't mean we don't have a problem with the equity firms and what they're doing and how it can be very dangerous for all of us, particularly those who have pensions. So let's get to that. Andy Cyrus, Senator Bob Hall, and Mike Weiner and Wes Peters on that. All right, I saw a hilarious video today. Apparently, RFK Jr. was talking right to the face of the governor of West Virginia, and I guess is going to try to help him drop a lot of weight. This is pretty funny. Watch this.
I got to know, I said to Dr. Morris, or Governor Morrissey, the first time I saw him, I said, you look like you ate Governor Morrissey. And there was a lot of talk about getting healthy again, and I'm very happy that he's invited me to be his personal trainer. And I am going to put him... I'm going to put him on a really rigorous regimen. And we're going to put him on a carnivore diet. We're going to make him raise your hand if you want Governor Morrissey to do a public weigh-in once a month. And then when he's lost 30 pounds, I'm going to come back to the state and do a celebration and a public weigh-in with him.
There you go. That's pretty hilarious, actually. So I wanted to bring that to you tonight. Let's see. What else do we have that's worthy of showing you? Oh. Now, I don't know what truth there is to this. We're going to follow this. But Jim Ferguson, he is a freedom fighter, takes on the globalist, businessman, entrepreneur, founder of Freedom Train International. He has a tweet out claiming... breaking, warning, confirmed attack zones April 5th. Unrest planned across America. Have you heard about this, Logan? No. You haven't heard about this, Logan? No. Look at that. Breaking news right here in the control room for those guys. Been sitting on this all day, Logan. Reports across the U.S. suggest far-left agitators are preparing mass attacks on Tesla dealerships as part of a coordinated operation fueled by Soros groups like Indivisible. Democrat-aligned media outlets are stoking the flames, pushing dangerous narratives to incite rage, chaos, and violence. Sounds like a movie. Sounds like the trailer of a movie. Democrats aligned with media outlets seeking to stoke the flames. There is growing fear that American cities could burn again just like 2020. Oh boy. What you need to know. Far left groups are mobilizing fast. Elon Musk is in their crosshairs. Law enforcement's bracing for riots. Media is laying the groundwork to justify the unrest. This is the globalist playbook in action. Provoke, destabilize, destroy. Patriots Business owners and freedom-loving Americans, do not be caught off guard. Prepare, secure, stay vigilant. Supposedly, this is the map. Wow. What do you make of that, Logan? That's a little scary. I don't know. April 5th or thereabout? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll come and go with nothing happening. Let's pray that's the case. But I thought I should bring you that story. President Trump today, he was asked, what makes someone a woman? Would you guys like to hear the response? Are you laughing already, Logan? You're already laughing. Have you heard it? Have you seen it? No, he's seeing this for the first time. Here we go.
What is a woman, and why is it important that we understand the difference between men and women?
Well, it's sort of easy.
Logan, was that Brian Glenn or Green? Yeah, I got to back that up. Here we go. Brian Glenn. Here we go.
What is a woman, and why is it important that we understand the difference between men and women?
Well, it's sort of easy to answer for me, because a woman is somebody that can have a baby under certain circumstances. She has a quality. A woman is a person who's much smarter than a man, I've always found. A woman is a person that doesn't give a man even a chance of success. And a woman's a person that in many cases has been treated very badly, because I think that what happens with this crazy issue of men being able to play in women's sports is just ridiculous and very unfair to women and very demeaning to women. And that's got to be about a 94%. I read today it was a 94% issue. And I watched the other day, a congressman, a well-known Democrat congressman, fighting for the fact that men should be allowed to compete essentially in women's sports. And I say, I hope they keep that going, because they'll never win another election. That's a big deal. But women are basically incredible people, do so much for our country. And we love our women, and we're going to take care of our women.
Good job, President Trump. You see that picture hanging in the background.
What is a woman, and why is it important that we understand the difference?
You see that picture hanging in the background, which is Ronald Reagan, President Reagan. That's right there in the background. Can you imagine? I'd like to go back in time and just see a video footage of President Reagan being asked, hey, President Reagan, what is a woman? I mean, unrehearsed, unplanned. Can you imagine President Reagan being asked, what is a woman, as though there was a controversy, a debate about what constitutes a woman? He would be stunned. But then again, so would my grandparents, so would my great-grandparents. They would be stunned at what's happened, that is even now something we have to talk about and ask about. But that is indeed where we are at. Now, we're going to go to a long format interview here with Annie Cyrus. Then we're going to go to Mike Weiner and Wes Peters. I pre-taped that one. And then we're going to go to Senator Bob Hall. Now, before we do these long format interviews, I remind you each and every night, we're brought to you by you. We've put together one page. Well, that's a good place to start, too. WorldviewFoundation.com. That's one of the most powerful ways you can support us. WorldviewFoundation.com. We are looking for more people to set up regular monthly contributions. WorldviewFoundation.com. Now, we've put together a whole page because you guys asked for it. You guys asked for it, and that is, put all your sponsors, please, Brandon, in one place, because we'd like to do business with the companies that help support you. Well, there's the Vault. Sign up for the Vault. Have access to our 35 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, conference DVDs, and more. And you get to live stream our upcoming event in April in Milwaukee, absolutely free. Our fall conference, as a Vault member, you would just live stream it free as a member. Swish for Life, that's loaded with glutathione. Swish it, detox your cells. Studies show it helps remove mercury from your brain. Did you guys hear the story about the gal that had some kind of like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's thing, and they started swishing her, they started letting her swish with Numi, and she went from like being in the fetal position and yelling all the time to stopping that and talking on the phone to Dr. Lana. I'm not making claims, I'm just telling you the story. That was powerful. This is not a joke. I swish with this every day. Glutathione to detox your cells. And some studies show may remove mercury from your brain to help prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Do you know, I don't fear too many things, but one of them, and it was being discussed today at lunch. Are you afraid of getting Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or dementia, Dad? Yes, I am. I cannot imagine that. Number one, for myself, and I can't imagine that for my family. I don't want that. So again, I'm not joking. I swish with this. Melissa does this. Swish for life. You'll find it at worldview2.com/sponsors. Worldview Gold. Go there, fill out the form, get the free no obligation packet of information on putting gold into your IRA or buying it, the bullion or the numismatic. That's 1933 and older. Coffee, if you want great coffee that's not sprayed, that is not sprayed with pesticides, you can do that. Worldviewcoffee.shop, worldviewcoffee.shop. The Bellagrace, I do that every day. You know, I take it every day. Bellagrace, powerful antioxidants, loaded with antioxidants, the astaxanthin that crosses the brain-blood barrier. Then we have the cat's claw, which is an anti-inflammatory. And then, of course, the collagen, where the peptides are cut short so that it actually digests into your system, gets into your stomach. So there you go. Check that out. Let's see, what else do we have? You can register for the big event coming up in April, the event coming up in April at the Waukesha Expo Center. And let's see here, what else? Worldview Talk. Worldview Talk. Get your satellite phone, get your solar generator, get a cell phone that doesn't track you. Worldview Water. Worldview Water, that's a water filter for onto your sink, your shower. This is the water we drink. They also adds magnesium and oxygen to the water. Takes out the fluoride, the pesticides, the bacteria, the lead, the as I said, fluoride, many other things. Great for not only yourself, but your grandbabies, your pets. This is the water Dolly drinks. It's all there. Check out all of our sponsors, would you? Worldview2.com/sponsors. By the way, when you go to Bellagrace, Bellagrace is to quote Tommy Lee Jones, that is a monster. That is a monster of a company. That is a great line from Fugitive, The Fugitive, Harrison Ford. He's talking about this particular company. He says, that is a monster. Well, let me tell you something. Bellagrace is a monster of a company and a monster of a sponsor for us. So many of you are using their products that next to our foundation, it is the biggest way to support this network. This company is our biggest sponsor. Why? Because so many of you use their products. Why are so many of you using their products over and over? I'm talking subscription. Because they work, because the Bellagrace works. My hands aren't cracked and bleeding. I got great hair growth. Haven't taken a Pepsid since December 2023. This is our biggest sponsor because their products are amazing and they work, or I wouldn't keep promoting them. I wouldn't keep taking them. Melissa wouldn't do it either, nor would you. And yet we have like 1,000 of you that get a subscription to Bellagrace every month. But it's not only the elixir, it is all, which has 80 clinical trials, but it's also the skincare. Melissa loves the skincare. It's the Bella Trim, which is an all-natural plant-based weight management product. But it's great for your cardiac health. And then the restorative sleep gummies. Melissa takes 2 of these a night, helps her stay asleep. These are all natural as well. So check it out. MelissaHouseBG.com, one of our biggest sponsors. MelissaHouseBG.com. Joining me now is Annie Cyrus. Annie, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Brennan.
Hey, let's talk about this guy that's running for mayor real quick. We're talking about a lot of things, Iran and so many other things. What about this guy that's running for mayor down in Richardson, Texas? Tell me about him, please.
You mean Amir for mayor, Amir Omar?
Yes. Tell me about him.
The moment I heard the name, I'm like, I gotta look this guy up because Amir is a very famous Iranian name. I'm like, so I go look him up. Absolutely. His mom is an Iranian. His dad is Palestinian, who both dreamed of coming to America when they were kids. They did. Separate ways. They came to America. They met, they got married, and they had Amir, who was raised as Amir Omar, a Muslim. Now, funny enough, Brennan, I haven't been able to figure out what kind of Muslim he was raised. Was he Sunni races from the Palestinian father or the Shia race from the Iranian side of mother? That I haven't discovered yet. However, it was a very, based on my research, not necessarily religious household, but definitely upholding Sharia household. And all of his slogans are about his vision for Richardson, his vision for neighborhood, his vision for diversity and exclusivity.
Wow. Well, Richardson, Texas, they're let's not go what's happening in Texas. Let's go to our website, worldviewtube.com. A jihad in Texas, Iran on the brink. We've got Texas, the Islamic Alamo. Will we take a stand or not? There's so many issues there related to what's happening in Texas. What are your thoughts of all these Islamists running into Texas? And why do you think they're choosing Texas? And what do you make that the, Jalamit, let me go look it up over here. The
Tablighi Jamaat.
Jamal, yes, thank you. What do you make that they are bragging so much that this is now in Texas, their North American headquarters and supposedly a Al-Qaeda tied network for recruit? At least that's what we're being told by Rare Foundation.
Well, I could say for sure they are not recruited by Al-Qaeda, and they do not actually agree with Al-Qaeda at all. Let me quickly break down Tablighi Jamaat. The word itself is Urdu, 2 words, Tablighi Jamaat. Jamaat means the people. Tablighi means the advertisers. They are literally the people of advertising of Islam. That's what they stand for. They have no political point of view. They're neither Republican, liberal, social, nothing. They're only about Islam, and their main method is to teach Islam and invite non-Muslims to join Islam. That's their motto. They have been criticized by many muftis, by many Islamic leaders, because they take Quran word by word as is. That's why a lot of Western organizations are thinking, oh, there must be Al-Qaeda. They don't initiate in planning any Islamic jihad, but they do engage in jihad because they take word by word of Quran as is. They don't believe in anything else. They only believe in Quran, Muhammad's life, and Hadith. They don't listen to any supreme leader. They don't, and that is the problem. Why are they bragging? Because now their headquarters in America gets to lie, cherry pick, sugarcoat Islam, and invite more people into their community and turn more people into Muslims. That's why it's a problem right now. Not because they walk around and plan Al-Qaeda or ISIS jihad attacks on Western countries. No, it's even more dangerous, if you ask me. Because with Al-Qaeda, you know what you're facing. With these people, they're just using their education technique, but then people don't know their education is false.
Now, thank you for that. Let's move now to Iran. What do you see coming with Iran? Trump administration resumes aid for Iran initiative. Here's one headline right now from Iran International. What are your thoughts about where we're going? I mean, there seems to be those who really want to see World War III, whether it's with Iran or with Russia. Yes, I'm concerned about Iran, but I also don't want to. I want to go the diplomatic route. I think President Trump does too. I don't know. Maybe you think he doesn't want to go. You're shaking your head. So what do you think? You think President Trump wants to strike Iran?
I don't. That's why he's taking this route. But me shaking my head is because there is a third option on the table that President Trump is not even entertaining. The media is not even covering. On January 20th, first thing in the morning, the Crown Prince of Iran, Prince Pahlavi, sent an official letter to President Trump congratulating him on his victory on the inauguration. Also, he said, you have the chance to go beyond and above the Abraham Accord and pull a Cyrus Accord and make history in Middle East. I am ready to talk. That letter has not even been acknowledged by President Trump or Trump administration. So there's a third option. People of Iran are ready to topple the regime. The prince has officially announced he's ready to take power. We don't have to strike him, Brannon, and we don't have to make a deal with the devil either. We could go the third route. For what reason President Trump is not entertaining it, I have no idea. I'm extremely disappointed, but I have no idea why he's not. Now, I do genuinely
believe... Let me just stop you right there. So the Shah, you know, a lot of people weren't alive then. Some were not paying attention. But for those who don't remember, the Shah had cancer. He comes to America. He got thrown under the bus by Jimmy Carter. And while he's gone, there's an Islamic Sharia revolution in Iran. He was not running a Sharia government. He was, you could look at the pictures of the women on the beaches and they're wearing two-piece bathing suits. You would think that was probably Miami, but it's not. It was Tehran. It was Iran. And so there you go. There's this now, years, decades now, of these people have been enslaved. Many of them don't want to live under Sharia, Islamic law. And you're saying the son of the Shah is saying, I'm ready to go back and lead this country. By the way, the queen, the Shah married a much younger woman, and this would obviously be the prince, his mother. She's still alive today, right?
Yes, absolutely. And believe it or not, 80% of us who are backing the prince are not backing him. We're backing her up. Because if she gets to go back and help her son put the country back together, there's a very bright future, not only for Iran, but for the entire Middle East and the Western countries. But as of right now, again, I have no idea why that option isn't even being acknowledged or entertained. But we have a much better solution to the problem. And I strongly believe when originally on March 5th, I believe President Trump, when he sent the official letter to Supreme Leader of Iran, I think he was hoping they're going to come back with an absolute no. But they kind of called his bluff and came back with, yes, let's negotiate. That's where we're trapped right now.
What do you think a strike on Iran by Israel and America would look like? And what do you think that would mean for Americans here in the lower 48?
Okay, I think that would be a terrible idea today, again, because there's a better option. However, I think if there's a strike, if there's a military strike on Iran, it won't last more than 10 to 15 hours because people of Iran are going to open all the gates and tell every single military, either Israeli or America, come on in, let me show you where to go. Genuinely, I don't think it's going to take more than a day. However, the backlash is going to be huge. There will be a lot of international voice coming out of it, noise coming out of it. I don't know how many international criminal courts they're going to drag Trump and Netanyahu to. If they're willing to face those, then they're willing to face that. But I don't think it's going to be World War III at all. It won't even last more than a day because, people of Iran are done. Military strike, Prince Pahlavi, whatever it takes, just come help us. There are streets of Tehran filled with graffitis and spray paintings of help. Free us. There was a huge Trump banner in Tehran day after inauguration with Farsi and English writing on it, Mr. Trump, come make America great again. It took him almost 72 hours to take it off the walls, the regime taking it off the walls. People are done. So two out of three options are going to work. The third option that we're stuck in right now will not work. Brennan, you know better than anybody. There is no negotiating with these people. No. There's no deal. Mm-mm. So we're wasting time, energy, and a lot of Iranians inside Iran and outside of Iran's last 24 hours, including myself, we are very, very disappointed. And that is not a good position for Trump administration to be, considering how many Iranians in 2024 walked in for first time in their life in America and voted for Trump for today. Now they're very disappointed that they did that.
So if they were to even strike Iran, you say it wouldn't last very long. What, if anything, would happen with the terror cells here in the U.S., like Hezbollah's?
Depend on how they handle the strike, how being Israel and America, how they handle the strike, we could face a very small couple of single attacks, or we could face disaster. And here, okay, so there's a leaked document published by Iran International, where I get most of my information, that there is a talk that Israel might not actually bomb the nuclear sites, but rather they might go for Jamaat. Where is that? Where the supreme leader of Iran resides. It's there about 20 hours out of 24 hours a day. If that happens, we're going to face nothing here. There is no one to give them the call to go for it. If they miss Jamaat and go for something else, there will be a call to action for them to retaliate on us here.
And what would that look like here? What would that last part look like, that strike?
every single town, from small towns to big cities, are going to face terrorist attack. They have way too many sleeper cells here, everywhere from, again, big cities to small towns. Right here where I'm at, 7 minutes away from me, is the second biggest Iranian Pakistani mosques located. And I'm in a very small town.
Would they go for power grid?
No. Brandon, I really think they're going to go for casualty. They're going to go to kill as many Kafirs as they can. They're going to go for blowing up buildings, cars, driving cars into populations, beheading with machetes, mass shooting in the schools, in churches, in synagogues.
So at this point, they're not going to want to put the grid down and wait for people to die. They want terror.
Blood.
They want blood.
Yes, they have to cast terror in the heart of unbelievers, as Allah said He will. If we strike first, they will strike back, and they're going to look for bloodshed in America.
Here we did have this headline: Iran responds to Trump's letter offering to negotiate a nuclear deal. At one point, I heard him say we haven't even received the letter, but have they now received it, I guess?
Well, originally they said we haven't received the letter. Then Khamenei himself came out on his Twitter account, or now known as X, and said, responded directly to President Trump as, "You are a bully and your bullying methods is not going to work on us." Then 2 days ago, he came out and said, "You know what? I changed my mind. Let's talk." And I think President Trump was really hoping for Khamenei to stick with the first respond of, "You're a bully and I'm not going to talk to you." But then I think advisors to Khamenei like, "Listen, let's talk. If he is willing to trap himself and buy us time, let's take it." Then he came out with the second respond of, "Okay, now there is one. Trump has requested direct negotiations. Khamenei has responded with, we're willing to do indirect negotiations." So let me be fair and say this is where we're at. They want to continue in direct negotiations like they did with Biden regime, but Trump has requested direct negotiations. We'll see who wins.
Tell me about this one. Russia moves to ratify a comprehensive treaty with Iran.
Yes. Mr. Putin officially sent in the whatever paperwork. I'm sorry, forgive me as I don't know all the proper terminologies, but they sent in the proper paperwork to start a whole new set of treaties doing business with Iran, which again, I don't want to sound as a never Trumper, but when President Trump tries to negotiate with Iran, Putin over there is like, "Hey, this is my window of opportunity. Let's get back on doing business with Iran," which I don't know as much as you know about how dangerous that could be, but I'm pretty sure I know that is not a good move for us here, or a lot of European countries for that matter, or let's say Israel. The letter has not exactly specifically said what kind of treaties they're going to do, but they're definitely, I'm pretty sure, nuclear stuff and uranium and I don't know, warheads, all of that is going to be part of that treaties. And one more note. If we sit down on those negotiations, part of the agreement is we're going to lift sanctions until we come to an agreement or not.
In fact, this article says that one of the key components of the agreement is energy cooperation. Putin announcing that Russia is moving forward with plans to export natural gas to Iran, with projections reaching 55 billion cubic meters per year. So I think it's going to be, as you said, military, energy, it's going to be across the board. They're calling it.
It's going to be pretty much whatever they had to do under the table, behind closed door because of sanctions. Now they get to do it openly because if this negotiation, this sit down happens, we have to lift those sanctions.
It's being described as the comprehensive strategic partnership. Comprehensive strategic partnership treaty with Iran to the State Duma for ratification. A significant step in deepening ties between Moscow and Tehran. So there you go.
And that's why I'm a lot of concern with this move by President Trump. I think he needs to backtrack, take the offer off the table, and just either go with Prince Pahlavi or just strike. I guarantee you there will not be a World War III if there's a military strike on Iran. I guarantee you that myself, not that my guarantee goes far.
Are they really going to be able to, how much are they going to be able to really do to his nuclear program? We're talking about many, many sites, and I hear they're really deep down in the earth.
Yes, they are. And actually, recently, Iran did another maneuver of showing off one of their very deep underground facilities. But here's what I'm trying to explain. If the strategy is put together correctly, the plan is correct, and it's executed properly, you have the people of Iran, including the Iran military. Remember, there's a difference between IRGC and the country's military. The members of military have joined the people since 2022 of Mahsa Amini murder. So when you have those, this isn't Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria where people hate Americans. This is a bunch of Iranians who not only love Americans, but also are personally asking for support of Israeli government or American government. When you have the majority of population and the military and the local police behind you, there isn't much. As I said, if Jamaat is taken out first, there is too much chaos going on within the regime to even, they don't remember, these are Muslims. They can't act until their supreme leader tells them to act. By the time they find somebody to give them the order, it can easily be done. I know a lot of your audience are probably sitting there like, she's crazy. I'm not. This is very possible because I talk to Iranian people literally on a daily basis, and they tell me that they're ready. From inauguration day, they geared up. People of Iran geared up. On Nowruz, which was last Thursday, they all gathered in front of Cyrus the Great's tomb, hoping for the regime to make a wrong move for them to start the uprising again, which the regime didn't. That should tell you a lot. This was the first time the Islamic regime of Iran did not stop the Iranian people from practicing anything of non-Islamic rituals in Iran in mass number of almost 7,000 of them gathering in one day.
Wow. Here's a comment today from President Trump in the Oval Office about Iran.
Iranian drones are attacking and killing Ukrainians every day. Why aren't you doing something about that?
Well, we're going to see what happens with that. I'm getting reports on that, and we're looking at a report. You're right. They make a lot of drones. Iran makes a lot of drones. They make very effective drones, too. They do very effectively at some things, but Iran is very high on my list of things to watch. And as you probably know, I sent them a letter just recently. And I said, you're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And we're going to either have to talk and talk it out, or very bad things are going to happen to Iran. And I don't want that to happen. My big preference, and I don't say this through strength or weakness, my big preference is we work it out with Iran. But if we don't work it out, bad things are going to happen to Iran. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, there you go. There you go.
Brandon, I know you're the host, but let me ask you this. Do you really think there's any talking it out with Iran?
No, there's not. No. How well
President
has that
Trump
worked
knows.
out? How well has talking it out worked out with Hamas? How well has that worked? I mean, we've got some hostages back, right? But what did they get? They got a gazillion terrorists back, and they got a chance to take a break and rearm and resupply and replan. So at the end of the day, who won that deal? Hamas won that deal. Yes, I'm glad we got the hostages back, but at the end of the day, Hamas got all these terrorists back, and then they can use this as a propaganda, spinning it that they've won.
And here's another possibility. What if we sit down to talk it out? While we're trying to talk it out, Khamenei make a call and tell the terrorists over here to go for a power grip? What then? We're dancing with the devil.
Yep. And by the way, when they kill the people, say, well, Brendan, they've killed all these Hamas leaders. There are people ready to take those jobs. I mean, they'll just move them up the rank. They have so many millions and millions of candidates, right?
Yes, they do. And also any of the leaders of these terrorist group, they can be not there and the group can continue functioning because you have the supreme leader making the orders.
All right.
Yes, this is a dangerous move. And I pray that, as you covered on your program last night, and I talked about it today on my program, I really hope that one man who knows the difference, Pete Hexon, will talk some sort of sense into President Trump.
What do you make of his new tattoo?
I love it.
It says
love it.
that he's a coffer.
I have a matching one. I love it.
You do?
And yes,
Okay.
he
Wow.
does get it. Yes, I do. He gets it. Pete Hexon gets it because he has served in the military, because he has looked them in the eye and he knows exactly what they are.
I guess I would love to see, I don't know from a diplomatic standpoint if it would help Trump, President Trump or not, but I would love to see the prince with a meeting in front of the fireplace in the Oval Office, just to send a message.
The moment I saw the letter, because the prince published it publicly as well, I literally grabbed it. I tried my best to make sure to spread it. But the very first thing I said was, bare minimum of this meeting, President Trump will achieve more fear for the regime.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just...
And that's why I think if President Trump were to appear with the prince in one of those chairs in front of the fireplace in the Oval Office, I think the folks in Iran would go, oh my, because they know that if President Trump desired to use the CIA and help the dissidents there in Iran, and that they have a plan to take down the regime and bring in the prince, this would be I think from a psychological standpoint, it would just rattle their cage.
And it makes you wonder why he hasn't done it yet.
So you agree that he should put him in the chair in front of the Oval Office?
100%.
Fireplace.
100% immediately. So many people have sat on that chair. That was no urgency for it.
Right.
Prince Pahlavi has it should be very top priority for him to sit there. And honestly, President Trump might be amazed after having a discussion with Prince. Remember, Prince Pahlavi had almost 42 years to come up with a plan. This man has a plan. And we trust his plan.
Wouldn't it also just be fun to watch how the left responded to the prince sitting in a chair in front of the fireplace in the Oval Office? Can you imagine how the left-wing media would respond and the headlines that would come out? That would just watching the headlines would be fun, because now they're going to have to try to predict what they think this all means and what's coming. And that in itself would be fun to watch for a couple news cycles.
It would be amazing. I think we're going to have a very brand new, nice river of liberal tears. I look forward to it.
I do too. LiveUpToFreedom.com. LiveUpToFreedom.com. I know you've been involved in another project for several months that kept you from being here, and you finished and wrapped up that work, and now you're able to come back with us, and we appreciate it. Look forward to having you as a more regular guest again.
Absolutely looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you, Annie. Annie Cyrus checking in for the first time in months. Glad to have her back. LiveUpToFreedom.com. All right, folks, before we go to the interview that I pre-taped the other night with Wes Peters and Michael Weiner about possibly the next big financial crisis coming from private equity firms that are buying up HVAC companies, dentist office, plumbers, retail stores, and some of these packages have been put into pension plans. Before we go to that, remember, one of the things I drink every day, Gatatana, 1 scoop, the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. There's like 5 clinical trials behind this. I also give it to Dolly, half a scoop on her food every day. There's Binks that had a tumor in his eye. They put that little kitty on some Galatana and tumor gone. Huh. And remember how this all started. Remember how this all started, folks. You remember how it all started? This largely started from a guy that was growing phytoplankton. They gave him a terminal. You're terminal. You're terminal. Go home, get your affairs in order. He's growing the phytoplankton for his shellfish. He says, what do I got to lose? He starts eating it. His daughter's like, you're crazy. You don't know what that's going to do. He's eating it, starting to feel better. Back pain's going away. Losing weight. Eventually, his diabetes, that ceased to be an issue. Goes in for surgery. I guess his lungs were covered with some white film. They did some biopsies, come out with 11 of them, come back, like, they're all benign. What are you doing? I'm just telling you his story. It was in the Canadian news up there, the newspaper. This is back July 6, 2005. And we've played the video of him telling his own story. Went on to live like another 10 years, retired to Hawaii. That's how this company ended up coming about with the help of Dave Hunter. So if you would like to go and get this, Gatatana, which is 100% all natural, Got a ton of phytoplankton. You can do that at melissahousegpa.com. melissahousegpa.com. We have a lower third for it. Oh, the lower third's coming. And Dolly takes it every day, a half a scoop on her food each and every day. So go ahead, check that out. melissahousegpa.com. Melissa House, HOWSE. What are you doing? Melissa House, GPA. You're after the water bottle. She already stole one, didn't she, Logan? She came in there with a dish. She's after another water bottle. melissahousegpa.com. melissahousegpa.com. What do you want? What is it now? You're like having a 2-year-old. Worse than a 2-year-old. Yeah, you want the business cards. You want the Bellagrace. You are a piece of work, aren't you? Everybody wants a lab now. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, after watching Brandon, let's get a lab. Yeah, I don't think you want a lab, do you? Not unless you have a lot of patience and the ability to give her a lot of attention. She is an attention seeker. She's a piece of work. All right, there you go. Melissa House, GPA.com. Joining me now are the Bad News Bears, Wes Peters and Michael Weiner. Gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening, Brandon.
Hey, good evening, Brandon. How are you?
I'm great, boys. Thank you so much. All right. Good. So where gold is still hovering over 3,000 an ounce today here. Let's see right now as we're...
Thank you.
Let's see. Yes, as Michael says. We are now at about almost $3,060. Silver at about almost $35, 34 and a half or so right now. So there you go. All right. We don't have a whole lot of articles I want to go through tonight because we have a very, very interesting article that Mr. Peters found. You want to tell us about this before we play it and then talk about it?
Yeah, play it and then we'll talk about it. Yeah, but this is the next coming 2008 financial crash potentially with private equities. This gal was wondering why profitable companies were filing bankruptcy and going out of business, such as Joann's, who 97% of their
Isn't that where you got all your fabrics for all the sewing
my pillows? My pillows I make? Yeah.
All your dresses and everything you make?
My curtains? Absolutely.
Did you know that? Yeah. Did you know that Wes is a really good tailor, Logan?
I'm a seamstress.
He embroiders too.
He embroiders?
Yes, he does that.
Cross stitching.
I did crochet when I was a kid.
I was about to ask, did you ever crochet? Really?
I was like 8 years old. I crocheted a little bit.
Yeah. Well, look at that.
I'm gonna knit you a sweater for Christmas. How about that?
So you're really bummed that Joann Fabric is closing. What are you going to do, buddy?
I don't know. Figure something out. But anyway,
where are you going to get all your material, your fabrics, and your patterns? Your patterns. Remember when your mom used to lay out all the fabric and get a pattern and cut it and make? My mom. As a kid, I spent hours in what would be the equivalent of Joann Fabrics when I was a kid. You know those big catalogs, they have up on the table, those huge catalogs. I have a twin sister. We would go there and spend hours flipping through those catalogs and playing in all those catalogs where my mother looked through them. And then she'd get a pattern and she'd get the material and she'd go home and she made all kinds of stuff. Very good seamstress.
Knock it out.
Oh, man. She could sew up a storm.
Yeah.
She'd make you she could probably tailor you a suit.
There you go.
So anyway, back to Joann's. Your favorite place is closing?
Yeah, correct. So, but 97% of their stores were profitable.
Well, why then are they closing?
Well, we're about to find out. We're about to find out why it's happening. But with private equity, ticking time bomb.
Wow. All right, here we go then.
Let's roll it.
Researching Hooters getting bankrupted by private equity and ended up uncovering the next 2008 level economic collapse. And they're hiding the bubble inside a private equity black box that makes it almost impossible to see what they're doing. Almost. This time, they're not going to collapse the banks and make it too big to fail. They're going to bankrupt the entire American pension system. I'm almost too afraid to make this video, but it has to be done, so let's get into it. In 2008, investors and bankers were able to crash the world's economy by engaging in risky, unethical bets and investments, and they did it right out in the open. They've learned, and this time they're doing it again. Bigger investments, bigger risks, same playbook, but they're doing it behind the smokescreen of private equity in bigger numbers. They're creating a bigger bubble than before, and it's not somewhere down the road. It's here, and it's about to pop. You see, for the last month, I've been trying to figure out why these companies that private equity had acquired were failing even though they were still succeeding. Joann's, 97% of their stores are still profitable, and yet they're still bankrupt. But they weren't bankrupt a year ago, and they still had the debt that private equity had stacked on them a year ago. So I wanted to know what changed. Now, in 2024, private equity bankrupted 110 businesses, and that was almost double their previous record. There had been huge increases in the amount of bankruptcies each year over the past 3 years. But I didn't know what had changed because private equity had held many of these businesses for several years, and they were still succeeding. Until I got my hands on an economic report and an article and found a term that nobody could explain to me. The term was back floating rate loans. I didn't know what that meant, and no article would explain it to me. So I had to go and do research in the financial prospectuses of a bunch of financial investment firms. Guys, in the last few years, private equity has taken out $3.8 trillion in adjustable rate loans. These are adjustable rate loans. These private equity firms took out adjustable rate loans. And so for the last 3 years, as our interest rates have gone up, every 30 to 60 days, the money due on the loans they stacked on top of these companies has gone up every 30 to 60 days. That's why these successful companies that private equity had acquired are suddenly bankrupt, even though they're still making money. They're bankrupt because they're paying adjustable rate loans. But it doesn't stop there. It gets so much worse, because my next question is, why are the banks willing to give these risky loans to these private equity firms knowing it's going to cause them to fail? And the answer is because the banks aren't going to keep them on their books. The banks are immediately repackaging these adjustable rate loans as something called CLOs, right? Which are then packaged and sold off to our pension funds as really great debt. And they tell them that it's a diversified portfolio. Are you hearing The Big Short in real time? Literally, all of these companies are getting bankrupted in greater and greater numbers. And all of this debt is adjustable rate. And all of the bankruptcies are skyrocketing in this direction. Now, if you look at this graph, you can see that aside from 2020, which is obviously an anomaly, right now, private equity, that's the yellow section, has double the highest number of bankruptcies they'd ever had prior to last year. And that number is climbing this year. $3.8 trillion. $3.8 trillion in this debt, okay? I want you to look back to 2008. Do you want to know how many risky adjustable rate mortgages there were? $1.1 trillion. Do you want to know how many subprime but not quite as bad loans there were? $1.3 trillion. That was just in housing. In the $3.8 trillion held by private equity, they own the largest shares of the home ownership market in the United States, but they also own the daycares. They own the veterinary clinics. They own the pet stores. They own the nursing homes. They own the emergency rooms. They own the doctor's offices, the orthodontists. They own the builders. They own the HVAC companies. This isn't just housing. It's going to touch every single industry around us. And that is why, if this were a free market and private equity had not exploitatively gotten involved, if we had a free market and we could see what they were doing, these companies would be succeeding. If this were actually a free market, these companies would be succeeding. Joann's has 97% of their stores profitable. That is an astronomical number. 97% of a retail store is profitable, and they are failing and they are closing every store. And it is further consolidating an already consolidated environment. And now there are thousands and thousands of employees that will not have jobs. And there are thousands of other businesses that are going through the exact same thing right now. And why? Because they know we will never allow the banks to be bailed out again. We would literally riot in the streets. But we're definitely going to allow them to bail out the pensions, because that's our grandparents. That's our parents. That's the working class. They know that this will get bailed out. And because there's no regulatory authority, there are no laws stopping private equity from doing whatever they want, they know they can get away with it, and we can't do anything to stop them. The most important thing you need to understand is this wasn't done by accident. This was done by blatant, intentional greed. The private equity firms wanted the cheapest debt they could get, and they believed arrogantly that the debt would stay cheap forever. They had 0% interest rate loans for ages. And so they took on these adjustable rate notes thinking they could keep refinancing forever out of it. It was arrogant. But it also meant that they got to collect bigger fees because they were taking risky debt that cost less. The bankers were happy to give them because they got higher fees on offering bad debt. They were going to get paid no matter what. At the same time, the private equity firms mandated in their contracts with these companies they acquired that they were advisors and that they were a management company. So they also get paid that way. And then they sold the land out from under these companies and all their assets and made themselves whole before any of this even began. They're already cash positive. The banks knew they wouldn't be held accountable because they were going to bundle it up and pass it off to the pensions. And even the pensions were reckless because they're buying these mechanisms because when you purchase into private equity, when you purchase private equity debt as a pension, you get to put on your books, especially if you have an underfunded pension, the projected gains for 10 years, which means for 10 years, it looks like that pension is more shored up than it is. And at the end of that 10 years, when it's time for that fund to close out, suddenly then all of the bad debt comes crashing down on the pension. But at that point, there's a new leader on the pension fund and they've kicked the can down the road. So even they were reckless. But at the bottom of all of this is the bankrupting of the fabric of our society. We are losing our businesses. We are losing our doctors. We are losing our orthodontists. We are losing our nursing homes. We are losing our funeral homes. And one by one, they're going to fall under the weight of this really horrible adjustable rate debt. And nobody is talking about it. I could only find 2 articles in very obscure financial magazines that even talk about these back floating rate loans. I have never been more terrified. And I talk about private equity a lot. I have a lot to say. But right now, all I want to do is get someone to pay attention that can make a difference in this because we have a problem. We're not without any hope at all. Right now, private equity is only allowed to be this exploitative because they exist under something called the carried interest loophole, something that multiple Congresses have tried to close, but private equity continues to bribe politicians to fail to actually achieve. Trump, 3 weeks ago, said he wanted to close the carried interest loophole. I thought he was doing it as a fundraising maneuver, but he's doubled down on it repeatedly. If we can make enough noise about this, maybe we can get him to actually see it through and end private equity's stranglehold on our population. There's so much more that we have to go through, so this is going to be a multi-part series. But if you're new here, my name is Tiffany. We work together to fight private equity and save small businesses in our community, and it's going to take every single one of us to do so. So do all the things and stick around. I'm so glad you're here. Now, anyone that survived the 2008 economic collapse knows that that entire economic disaster was built on the backs of banks giving these incredibly risky adjustable rate mortgages to people that otherwise would not have qualified for these loans. And then they bundled up all of this bad debt and repackaged it and sold it in things called tranches and CDOs. And they bundled them up and sold them to all kinds of other investment mechanisms and built a house of cards on top of them. But they're doing it again. We didn't learn anything. This is going to be a detailed series, but if you're new here, my name is Tiffany. We work together to fight private equity.
All right, there you go. All right, this is absolutely fascinating. I mean, I hope we didn't get too big in the weeds. Let's back up. Can you give me is Michael still with us or is he frozen?
Right here.
Okay. Can you give me the bullet points, Wes? Give us the Cliff Note private equity firms for dummies Cliff Notes. Go.
Well, private equity are companies that are not traded on the stock market. These are companies like Mitt Romney. He owned Bain Capital back in the 80s. And these private money, this outside money from wealthy people comes in and buys up these companies, and they start slashing all their costs and overhead and trying to make these companies look good on the books so they can turn around and flip them and sell them. And like she said, it's just another form of greed. Like you said, we're not going to allow the taxpayer to bail out the banks again for being irresponsible. So all this money has now funneled into these private equities. And, now I know where my Cheddar Bay biscuits are going, from Red Lobster, they're in trouble as well. So it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a shell game. And it's going to be these private equity people that are going to make a fortune, and they've got it over here in the pensions and retirement accounts. And we're not going to let those fail. These people did nothing wrong.
Let's explain how this happens. So the private equity firm goes to Joann's, okay? Tell me how this works, Wes. They go to Joann's and they say what? We will give you a loan to expand and rent more buildings to put in more Joann fabrics? And they do that with adjustable...
Correct. We're going to invest in your company and grow it. with the ultimate outcome to sell it at a huge, significant profit. And these people are seeing dollar signs and they're like, okay, you're going to come in and help us and grow our business and we can have an exit strategy and make a lot of money. That sounds good to us.
So they say, let's just make up a figure. We're going to show up and we're going to bring $100 million to grow your business so that you become worth more. And then some big company will come along and buy you up and you guys can all cash out really wealthy. Now, okay, that happens all the time. But the problem is that the private equity firms are doing this on adjustable rate loans. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. Absolutely.
So as the mortgage rates went up, that meant the payments on that money that was being borrowed were going up, which started impacting the bottom line and the profitability. But even though Joann Fabrics, 97% of them were profitable, their profitability was being eaten up by maintaining the debt on those adjustable loans, correct?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
All right. So to save themselves, Michael Weiner, what are the private equity firms doing? So they're in this spot. The private equity firms saw an opportunity to go to some company. Here's a bunch of money to grow your business, build it up, and then we all sell it, make a bunch of money. But they did it with adjustable rates. Oops, the interest rates shot way up. Now we're paying too much of our profitability on interest payments. So how do the private equity firms protect themselves, Michael?
Well, first of all, the private equity firms don't have to protect themselves. They're a natural winner, everything they do. They're nothing more than a bunch of companies. And who's the number one private equity firm? You know who that is?
No.
It's Blackstone. Blackstone. You heard of Blackstone?
Oh, yes.
They are number one.
There's Blackstone, BlackRock, these kind of groups, right?
Warburg Pincus, there's a bunch of companies. There's Vista Equity. I mean, they're all of them. They never go into a deal and lose. They don't lose. They go in there, they take a good company, they convince them to do the wrong moves, they get in trouble, they pull their profitability out, and the companies like Joann's go under.
Okay, let me stop right there. So you're telling me that when the loans are taken out, the equity firm isn't the one guaranteeing the loan. The one guaranteeing the loan is the company they went in and promised.
That's right. And they get banks involved too. And they get involved with the pension plans of these companies and the retirement plans of these companies. It's horrible. And that's why they're talking about that, because what's going to end up happening is you take a company like Joann's or some other firm and Blackstone goes in and says, hey, we're going to give you all this money. Well, we don't need the money. Well, you need it. You need it. I'll convince you. You go in there, they take all this money, and the next thing you know, they got to pay it. What's one of the biggest assets of companies? Their pension plans. So what she's saying in this statement is that they are going to raid the pension plans of these companies, and different than what happened in 2008, which we would never allow again, to allow us to bail out all these banks the way we did. We're not going to let grandma and grandpa and people older than me, 1,000 or 1,500 years old, that legitimately are going to lose their retirement. So the government is going to go in and bail out these 401ks for people who are legitimately, are companies that are legitimately shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Okay, somewhere along the way we missed a step, because we had the private equity firms that come in with money, convince the company to grow and expand. They guarantee the loan. They go to banks to get the loans. The private equity firms wants it because they're going to make profit. The bank wants it because they're going to make more money on fees and profit. But somewhere we missed a step, because you're saying now that to bail it out, you've got to be worried about the pension. But surely it's illegal, Wes, to take someone's pension to pay off your company's bad loans. We missed a step somewhere.
What they're doing, Brandon, just like they did in the housing market, like Countrywide was a huge lender prior to the 2008 crash. They bundled up all these loans and sold them to Citibank, to Wells Fargo. They packaged them up and sold them. That's what these private equities are doing, is they're packaging up all of these loans for through Joann's and all these, and selling them to pension funds and 401ks.
Okay, now there you go.
On the surface, they look like great investments.
That was the missing step. Okay, I want to make sure the audience is keeping up with us. There got to be step by step by step to explain it. So they were selling, the equity firm were selling these this debt
packages
as packages, but they were selling it as a great investment, and so the pension of some union or some company would come along and buy that package as a potential great opportunity to make a bunch of money, and they buy it. So now the equity firm has sold it. Is that what I'm hearing, Wes?
Exactly.
So the equity firm,
they're looking at it as a
long-term
long-term investment.
So think of this package as a piece of property. Think of it as a piece of property. You buy a piece of property, and you're gonna build a house, and we're gonna make it great and sell it for a huge profit. But then the mortgage rates go up on an adjustable rate, and now we can't keep up with the payment. So the equity firm comes in and says, "Let's just sell the whole thing as a package to some pension company." And the pension's thinking it's a great deal, buys it. And now your grandparents and parents are going to have a problem when their pension fund is belly up. So that would be an analogy to use, correct?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
But it goes further, because this is a setup from day one.
I get that, but we have to explain it in ways that people can understand how the scheme is working.
Because at the end, the pension plans or the retirement programs or the 401ks, whatever they are tied into this. And they will be the big loser, and they will be the ones. What she's trying to say in this whole thing is that we're not going to fall into the same thing of bailing out banks again,
right?
But we'll bail out these pension plans, and this bailout could be bigger than the bailout of banks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, three times.
But 3 times.
3 times bigger.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's go to the pension plans, the pension company. Are we talking pensions for government workers, for public school teachers? Who are we talking?
We could be talking state pensions. We could be talking city pensions, municipalities, federal educational pensions, or we could also be talking 401ks. It's not just one thing. And right now, the reason why Reagan created gold IRAs was because exactly of this. Because he wanted people not to own all this paper. And that's exactly why the gold is there. Because a lot of companies, if they had their people in gold IRA, and some companies are paying into it now, it'd be a better idea, because all of this garbage paper is exactly what Reagan was trying to protect the American citizens about. There's almost $50 to $60 trillion in pension plans. How many times more is that than what happened in 2008? And Trump sort of smells it. But they have been digging into this. This is not something that just happened last week. It's building to a crescendo right now.
Yeah. And the criminal thing about it, Brandon, is these pension plans are these private equity firms. They will have made their money. They're out. And it's going to be up to the taxpayer again to bail out these pension plans and 401ks.
Do you believe the private equity firms, did they know what they were doing, or were they just greedy and weren't anticipating the interest rates going up? They thought interest rates were always going to stay really, really low.
Totally knew what they were doing.
What do you say, Wes?
Go ahead, Wes.
I think they knew what they're doing. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So they knew interest rates were going to go up and this was going to be a problem?
Yep. I believe so. Yeah. And at the end of the day, all they care about is how much money are we making? And those people will be out all right in the end, because the government's going to step in and bail them out. They just look for the same thing happened in the mortgage industry, and the whole reason that they went this route was because, again, they knew that the American people were not going to accept a bailout. There was going to be a bail-in, and people that banked at those institutions were going to be the ones to take the haircut.
So when you say that this happened with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So the government came in and bailed them out. The government came in and bailed them out, but the people that were doing the closing, the banks, the closing, the title companies, they all made their money, and then and then these loans from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac of people who should have never gotten a house because they could have never qualified for it. They should have never. But the government, I think that was during the Clinton years, forced these companies to offer loans to people to buy homes they could not afford. But when the when the banks and the title companies, and the builders and everybody got done, they had their money. But it was all sitting over here being financed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is government, right? Quasi-government. So the government just ends up bailing out a government institution, but all the friends and all the, quote, business people of the politicians, they all made their money.
Yeah.
When TARP went on.
What's that, Michael?
Go ahead, Mike.
I was saying TARP. I think I told you a long time ago, the people at the top have no clue in government about money. So when TARP was going on, if you remember under Bush, they started handing out TARP money, and the bank that adjudicated it was Mellon Bank. And I told you, my son, who was a lawyer, was working for them in that department. I went to see him in Los Angeles. There were two guys with blue suits and guns standing by an office. And I said, what's that? And he says, they're giving TARP money out on the computer on them in that office. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being transferred to banks. It's amazing.
Whoa. Why would you need two guys in suits with guns for money transferred over a bank?
To make sure nobody else could go on that computer except an authorized person. Because that was directly connected to the Fed. Money moving out of the government. That's why.
And back when this was going on in the housing industry, where if you could fog a mirror, they'd give you a $250,000, $300,000 loan to buy a house.
If you could fog a mirror.
If you could fog a mirror, yeah.
If you're breathing.
And we saw it firsthand here in Arizona. West of here, there's a Del Webb community, family community. They were building out there, and there would be investors come from California, and on phase one, they would buy 10 lots and put down the down payment for 10 homes. And by the third phase, the final phase of that neighborhood, if you drove through those neighborhoods when they were finished being built, every house had a for sale sign on it. And if you got in on phase one, when you were selling your house in phase three, you were making about $60,000, $70,000 of profit, never making a payment on the thing. And I had a friend that I went to high school with. We were best friends growing up, and he had a pretty good mortgage company here in Arizona, and they were just killing it, doing tons of loans. And as soon as they did those loans, he had a team that all they did was bundle up all those loans and sell them to Citibank. Bundle them up and sell them to Countrywide. And they wouldn't hold those loans. They'd sell them, they'd make their money, and boom, give them off to somebody else. So.
And then the government did the government come along and bail those banks out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They all got bailed out. Mm-hmm. Yep. They all got bailed out.
All right. So then she says, now the concern is this is your orthodontist office. This is your HVAC. Now, what does she mean by that? Because I do know, if you guys will Google it, Logan, maybe somebody in there can Google this. HVAC owners becoming multimillionaires. HVAC. HVAC. HVAC owners becoming multimillionaires. Plumbers becoming multimillionaires. I'm reading stories where people that have worked building their HVAC business, heating, air, or plumbing business, they're now selling their businesses for $1 million or more to an equity firm. And they're cashing out as now a millionaire. Or, maybe some of them are selling for more than $1 million. So Is this what she's talking about when she says this is tied in to our HVAC companies, our orthodontists? Are they being bought up by equity firms, and then equity firms are selling this to pensions as investments?
Correct. Yes. And a lot of these industries and vocations as well, again, you get in a situation where your business is being profitable, but you have a building that you financed on a 5-year arm or something, and those interest rates are jumping like crazy. These people are getting in these positions where like we said, they can't afford the payments. And a lot of these buildings, if they want to refinance them, they won't qualify because the property value's gone down.
All right, here it is. So, I had to find it myself. Here I found it. Private equity is taking on the skilled trades. Okay? October 2024. Private equity firms have been increasingly targeting skilled trade companies like heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical businesses for acquisition and consolidation in recent years. Okay? And you go read some of these articles, you'll find out of these people, that own these companies and been running them themselves, family businesses for years, are grabbing them up or are having them grabbed up and bought by these equity firms. So that's why she says, wait a minute, this isn't going to just impact some retail store. This is going to impact your HVAC companies. This is going to impact your plumbers. This is going to impact your orthodontists. Because I'm assuming what these companies are doing, and come back to us guys, is that they are going around the equity firms and they're buying up other, orthodontist offices too, probably. I mean, whatever she mentioned, they must be going around buying these up.
Right.
Then when they buy them up, I guess I'm to assume that they then sell them, and they sell them to pensions. And some of these pensions are got billions of dollars in their pensions. That's how they have the money to acquire these things, right?
Yep. Colleges, endowment programs, absolutely. Yep.
Don't you remember that movie Wall Street when they talked about the airline company that Bud's father had? And they talked about where they were going to get the money for it all, right out of the pension plan. And what was Gordon Gekko? Private equity guy.
And again, the problem comes that when these pensions buy these packages, they're financed on adjustable loans, correct?
Correct.
So as the interest rates go up, the packages are no longer cash flow profitable businesses. They're now businesses that are in distress.
Upside down. Yep, absolutely. So,
yep.
So when do you think this is going to pop?
Well, I think that Trump's going to expose it. I think it's going to come up by the government. I think Basant and the rest of them are going to expose it. I think it's going to come out because the Pension Guarantee Trust guarantees pension plans. And when you see one pension plan tumbling, it's going to be a domino effect, and the government's either watching it now or not. We know that Biden didn't watch it; couldn't even watch his shoes. But it's going to come to a head one way or the other. And I would assume this administration, who's paying attention to the numbers, are going to see it. That's what she said in one of her in this. Trump has been doubling down on this. He's watching it.
He's watching the carried interest loophole, she said.
Correct.
And that's where instead of paying like a regular ordinary income of up to 37%, they're paying a much lower capital gain tax at 15 to 20%. So they play with the numbers, and they're paying a much lower rate of tax. They're only paying 20%.
You're talking about the pensions.
Billions of dollars.
You're saying the pensions can pay less tax, which is why this is partly attractive to them.
Correct. And the private equity also.
And private equity knows, on a Tuesday night at 6:30 when they put a guy who's 70 years old retiring from some podunk company and sits there and says, I've lost all my pension. The government hasn't covered me, or what are they going to do? What do you think is going to happen? The empathy is going to be like crazy, and the government's going to back it up. That's what she's saying right there. That's their loophole. The private equity firms know that the backup that they have is the government is not going to let this little guy, who's a lot younger than me, he's 70, I'm 170, and at the end of the day, he is going to go on TV and cry that he has no pension, and the government's going to come in to save him.
Okay, but some of these private equity firms have already sold, so they have no liability. They've already walked away. They've taken their profit. The whole thing is sitting, in some cases, right, Wes, with the pensions alone. So when those pensions go bankrupt because they've got too many bad debts that they've taken on, too many packages or businesses that they have taken on that are not profitable, so they can't fund their pension and keep paying out their people, the government's going to go in and step in and bail out those pensions. Now, here's the problem, obviously. I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. I don't have a pension, okay? I was 19 years old when a financial planner tried to sell me a, 401k or whatever they called them back then. I don't know if in 89, they were calling them, or 1988, they were calling them 401ks or not. Were they, guys, in 1988? Were they calling them that?
Yeah.
He tried
they were 401ks.
Okay, he was trying to sell me something like that. And I said, no. And he said, why? And I said, because when the government and everybody goes kaput, how do I know I'm going to get my money? You're asking me to take my money and put it in something where someone's going to take it and invest it in all these other things, and I'm going to make this return. I think I can make a better return on my own money, number one. Number two, I can control the decisions that are made so that I can have a better chance of making sure the decisions I make are profitable decisions. I give this money to your 401k, your guy goes out and invests it, he loses it all. Or the economy turns and the market turns, and all of a sudden there's very little there anymore. And now I'm like, I should have invested that in my own business. I should have invested in my own life. And I said, I'm not interested. I was 19. I've never had a 401k. I've never owned a mutual fund. I've never owned any of this garbage. Because I always invested in my own companies, whether it was my commercial cleaning company that I started and owned, whether it was starting up Worldview Weekend Publishing and telling the two big publishers I was with, one of them had bookstores all over the country. I finally realized I'm selling more books than they are. Why am I giving you 90% of the profit when I'm the one writing the book and selling 90% of them? I don't need you anymore. I have a radio show and TV show and my own distribution outlet. And I took my capital, invested in publishing. Then I took my capital and I invested in television production and filming all my Worldview Weekends and producing all my own documentaries and being my own publishing house and my own television house. And I guarantee you, I've gotten a much better return than the stupid morons that would have been managing that 401k. Now, with all that said, I'm now 56 next month. When I was 19, I chose not to play that game. So guess what? I have zero empathy for your grandfather or your grandmother because they took the risk. They should have known what I knew at 19. And I'm said, I'm not doing that. There's too much risk. There's not enough control. I have no idea who's moving the money around, where they're putting it, what they're doing. I trust myself, not them. They took the risk. If they get burned, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but you knew the risk. So here's the deal. If you made a fortune, would you end up giving me a percentage? No. So if you lose it all, why should I, through my tax dollars or the inflation of my money now being decreased in its value and its purchasing power, have to pay 1 red cent because you made a dumb decision?
But I agree with you, but what do we do for the viewers out there that are watching this tonight? And my advice and Wes's advice is very simple. If you're 59 and a half years old, or you control your own retirement plan through your company, you have access to it. If you're over 59 and a half years old, you should start protecting some of your 401k and some of your pension while you can. You can do it after 59 and a half years of age, and you could do what President Reagan offered you protection was, putting it in something physical in gold, not in any more of this paper. We have a lot of people who are smart enough to do that, and they are feeling very self-reliant today and arm's length from this type of minutia.
I agree with that 100%. 100%. Wes, though, how many Americans are going to be in favor of bailing out these pensions? Or how many of them are going to be like me that say, I never took part in that. I saw the danger and the risk in that at 19, and I'm 56 and I want nothing to do with it. And don't you dare devalue my currency and my purchasing power for other people. I'm tired of people thinking we owe to bail somebody out. What percentage of Americans are into this? In other words, are we a minority? Are you in a pension? Do you have money in a pension?
No.
All right. So how many people are like you and me? What percentage of Americans?
Maybe 20. I would guess 20% would be high, probably.
So you're saying 80% of the
vast
people
majority
in the country,
of people have pension, may not have pensions, but they have 401ks. Absolutely.
And they didn't diversify enough so that if they lose it, they're offsetting it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yep. So, pensions are becoming a thing of the past.
Why
obviously.
the politicians will bail it out, because 80% of the voters are gonna scream for it.
Yep.
And that's why we're a socialist country. I don't give a rat's patoot who's in the White House. We are a socialist country, okay? People can tell you all day long we're free market. We're not. We are a corporate fascist system. It is a form of socialism, big government, big business, and they cater to the politicians who know where their bread is buttered by the voter and by the corporations. And the people that sail their own ships can just pound sand.
Yep.
And that's you
Yep.
and me, Wes.
Yep. Well, they're you know, it's these pensions, retirement accounts start going down. I think the vast majority of people that have money in those types of plans are going to be saying, "Yeah, heck yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. We need bailed out. You bailed out the car companies, you bailed out the banks. It's time for you to bail out these pensions, and maybe this time around you hold someone accountable that made this whole fiasco."
No one will be
nightmare
held
happen.
accountable. No one is ever
course
held
not.
accountable. Never, never, never. And I get it that the people with these pensions are like, hey, I didn't make this decision. I didn't do this. And now I'm damaged. I get it. But the problem is we let corporations and financial houses do things they should have gone to prison for a long time ago. The free market system is not perfect. But the problem is when you have over-regulation and then too little regulation. And clearly we have had too little regulation here that they could get away with doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's little to no regulation in this private equity side of things.
Well,
and that's what some people are concerned about.
You know what? And then it goes back to what Mike Brady taught us when Greg Brady bought a clunker of a car. Buyer beware. And I think he said it in Latin. Buyer beware. Okay? So I learned it as an elementary student watching the Brady Bunch. Buyer beware, Greg. You bought a clunker for $100 or whatever it was. Remember that one?
Right. Yeah.
You do, don't you?
I do.
Of course you do.
I used to watch the Brady Bunch.
Of course you did. You had a crush on Marsha, like every red-blooded American man. So
I don't know about that.
You don't know about that? All right. It was probably Jan. You're probably more of a Jan guy. But the bottom line is, if Americans would take responsibility for their own financial house, they could be diversified enough not to be always the one who gets taken. And what you're saying right now is, if I'm hearing you correctly, people that better pull the parachute right now, if you had, let's say you had $250,000 in your pension or $500,000 in your pension after working for 30 years, Wes, and you heard tonight what you heard, what would you do?
Well, if they would let me get my hands on it, I would be definitely taking a good chunk of it out of there. And seeing, or at least seeing if I could roll it over, with no taxes or penalties, or even if there is taxes, if you're over 59 and a half, taxes are only going to go up. Consider pulling it out. I'm not a tax expert. I don't give tax advice, but I would be finding out what your options are.
But you know what? Paying tax and being left with something is better than paying no tax and losing everything, in my opinion. Michael?
Right.
I totally agree. That's why Reagan did all this. That's why they created precious metals IRAs. It puts you in control. Reagan was a guy who always felt that the government was the problem, not the solution. And he always felt that the people running the government had sticky fingers. I mean, he got to know Biden and all those guys just when they were just building up their nest eggs of wealth over our money. And the bottom line is they just keep building up and building up and building up. And the only thing you can do if you want to retire and sleep at night is put part of your retirement into gold where you don't have to worry about it going to zero and you don't have to answer to anybody because possession is 9/10 of the law.
So right now, let's say someone's watching and they have a pension. I don't give financial advice, I give financial opinion, just for that.
Let's say retirement.
Well, okay, let's say someone's got a pension, okay? They got this retirement account, their pension, right?
401k.
Right.
But it's all the above, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the above.
Correct.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Any type.
Yeah?
No, I was just going to say any type of retirement account, 401k, IRA, pension, all the above.
So if you know what you're hearing now, what percentage of that would you be pulling out and diversifying? Wes?
Myself personally, I'd be looking at like 50%. based on the time we're living in right now. People always ask that question, what do you typically put into precious metals? 10 to 20% of your net worth. But we're not living in normal times. I believe in diversification, but how long have you heard me say, Brandon, it's time to get some of your hard-earned money outside of the traditional banking system and outside of the US dollar. Digital currency is coming. You do not own your money in the banks. You need to get something out of the system. And, I'm a big precious metals guy, obviously. I've been buying it for over 20 years. I buy every year. I buy a couple times a year. I dollar cost average, just like you have. And, these financial institutions own your money. I just talked about it last week on the show. Bank refused to wire a lady's $120,000 unless she showed them an invoice. They needed to see specifically what she was buying. These financial institutions, when things start going in the tank, pack a lunch when you call Raymond James, Edward Jones, Schwab, Fidelity, whoever, and be prepared to wait on hold to talk to a live human being to try and do something with your money at that point in time. You need to be proactive. But at the end of the day, people need to do a dollar amount they're comfortable with, Brandon. Whatever that amount might be, if it's 10% or if it's 50, 60%, that's totally up to them. But one thing I wouldn't rely on is talking to my financial advisor, because your financial advisor is going to tell you you're crazy. Everything's going to be fine. This is the great old USA. It's going to bounce back. It's going to come back. Your financial advisor has never gone through a period of time like this.
Well, they didn't tell you to look out for 2008 and be ready for that, did he?
No.
And again, what we're talking about is the ability to take some of your retirement, like your IRA, and put it into physical precious metals that is actually physically somewhere in a vault with no liability against it, right?
Absolutely. And if they don't like the idea of it being in a vault, then your other option is to pull it out, pay the taxes. If you're over 59 and a half, that's an option, because again, taxes are only going to go up. Liquidate whatever amount from that retirement account, pay the taxes now, and buy gold and silver privately, and get that wealth completely off the government's radar, off the grid. Because you can buy gold and silver. That all we need to know from you, we don't need a date of birth, social security number. Where do you want us to send this stuff to?
But not only off the grid, your gold is now not dependent upon collapsing due to someone's poor financial mismanagement with private equity firms and adjustable rates, et cetera, et cetera. It is a universal asset that has historically gone up. And I mean, look at where it was in the 80s, right? What was it at 800 an ounce? Now we're at 3,050 bucks an ounce.
Well, and you have people that are normally Wall Street stock and mutual fund cheerleaders talking about gold being up another $500 an ounce by the third quarter of this year.
Yep.
Well, we've got a full-blown trade war about to start here that's already in process.
So other than this gal, we're going to come back to this, but other than this gal, no one else is really talking about what we talked about tonight?
No, when I came across this, I was like, wow, this is powerful. And I started looking into her, and she's been a big advocate for small businesses. And again, she started noticing, why are there so many of these companies failing? And she started digging into it and came across Joann's. If 97% of their stores are profitable, why are they failing?
Well, there you go.
And she started digging into it. So, yeah.
All right, get your free packet, no obligation. We don't give financial advice. I get financial opinion. My opinion is do your due diligence. Get the free pack. How do you do that? We got a new website, worldviewgold.com. Go to worldviewgold.com right here, folks. Fill out the form. Click more information. Fill out the form. And it will go to Wes, and he will send you that no risk or free, no obligation packet. Free, no obligation packet. Worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Brian. Have a good evening.
You too, my friends.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
All right, that was a very important interview. All right, now before I go to Senator Bob Hall, remember, get your free pack of business cards. We're now approaching 10,000 of these business cards that have been sent out. You guys asked for them. Say, hey, can we have business cards we can pass out to our family and friends? And we said, sure. So we printed some. Never expected this response. In 6 weeks or less, We've now sent out 10,000. A pack of 20, they're absolutely free. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Check that out if you would, worldviewstore.com. In fact, and we'll send you. If you run out of the 20, you give them all away, order some more. While you're there at worldviewstore.com, check this out. Look at this. Our national conference is coming up. October 3rd and 4th, a Friday night, all day Saturday. Gordon Chang, Sidney Powell, Dr. Lana, Chris Martinson, Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, Alex Newman, myself. It's our 22nd annual national conference. We moved it to the Mid-South. We're going to save money by doing that, so we pass the savings on to you. Tickets are only $99. Now, the kicker is we rented a theater, beautiful theater, here in Collierville. Nice, middle-class, safe community. And all the hotel information and everything is right there on the website. So I urge you to go ahead and book your hotel while you can, before some soccer tournament comes to town and takes it all up. But here's the kicker. We only got 350 seats. Only 350 seats. So if you want to attend, you should go ahead and register now, because I can't promise you how long that's going to last with 100 seats already gone. Okay? And if you're a Vault member, you can stay at home if you want to and watch it as a Vault member. But otherwise, worldviewstore.com. Joining me now is Texas State Senator Bob Hull, a regular guest here. We've had the chance to interview him in person at CPAC. He's also a veteran, former military. We're honored to have him with us. He's an expert on EMP, the grid, and so much more. And he joins us tonight. Senator Bob Hull, thanks for making time for us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always an honor to be on one of your programs, because you talk about real stuff and real problems.
Well, you're very kind. You're very kind. Thank you for that. I want to talk to you about, I guess, before we get to it, I'll tease it, a major scandal in your Texas lottery system. Is that right?
Yes, sir. There certainly is.
All right, let's talk about that. That's a little hook, folks. Stay tuned. Now,
okay, what we've found is a criminal organization operating within the Texas government.
Okay, hold there, folks. We're going to talk about that. But first, we, as you guys know, have been covering a couple stories. Here's one, Texas under siege. We got a video of an Islamic guy out in front of this mosque bragging over and over. He shows a whiteboard inside the building, apparently, that Tablighi Jamaat is going to be now the headquarters, will be there in Texas, in Garland, the North American headquarters. We have another article, and we've been talking about this now for probably a year now. Epic in Plano, Texas. Of course, the guy running this, the Imam, Yasser Qadi, was just a few miles down the road. And we started talking about him, I think, in 2010, if I remember correctly. But we really got to talking about him in 2017. And this guy is really trouble. So Texas, we're getting a lot of emails and text and phone calls, Senator. A lot of folks are very concerned about what's happening in Texas. Your governor has been saying that this is not going to go through, that this is a real problem, but I don't know if I believe that or not. But what are you hearing? What are you hearing about all of this?
Well, one of the main things is what you just mentioned. Our governor, Governor Greg Abbott, has come out pretty strong statement stating that Texas Sharia law is not legal in Texas as a law. And so any entity that's planning on operating under Sharia law will be shut down. That's basically what he has said. And I do know that our Attorney General is doing an investigation of the operation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm hoping, I like Ken Paxton. I've interviewed him many times, and I do hope they can get to the bottom of it, because this thing is pretty concerning. In fact, here he is. The group behind proposed Epic compound may be misleading investors, defrauding Texans, will not be tolerated. The Texas State Securities Board is conducting a thorough investigation to ensure Texans are protected. All entities in Texas must follow state law, not Sharia. And he's put out quite a bit about it, as you said. So is we showed the other day a letter from the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. But I couldn't bring you on without bringing this up, because you're from Texas and this has been the news all week. Your personal thoughts on it?
Could say one more thing is we do have a bill that I expect to get through the legislature, this section, prohibiting foreign ownership of land in Texas.
Nice.
We tried last session, and it made it out of the Senate, but not out of the House. But I do expect that there's a little bit different attitude towards it. So it will be preventing ownership of land in Texas by countries that are considered to be enemies of the United States.
Excellent.
And terrorists, such as what's going in Plano, are definitely enemies of Texas.
Excellent. Glad to hear that strong statement. Thank you, Senator. I know our audience and many in Texas will be happy about that.
Yes.
Let's talk about what you have found. It sounds like major corruption in your state criminal enterprise in the state lottery system.
Yes. Whenever you break in the law, it's criminal.
Right.
And our lottery commission has been breaking the law. They even admitted it a couple of weeks back by putting out a press release saying that they were going to change their rules. How this came about, or what we found, was in the previous session in 2023, there was a major win, biggest ever in the Texas lottery, $95 million win. And that kind of surprised people. Wow. And when we looked into it, it turned out that it was being sold from a building up in Collin County, or near Collin County, in a place called Colleyville. And the only thing outside that you could tell what was inside the building was a sign that said "Hooked on Montana." And it turns out that their business was fly fishing trips, tour guides to Montana. And that in itself flew in the face of legislation that had been passed, which established the lottery. And just to give the background there is that when the lottery was first established, there was a great deal of concern of making sure that we didn't have a system that would promote or foster addiction, could not drive people into debt by using credit, and that anyone under 18 could not use the system. Could not buy tickets. That was clearly stated in words that were very easy to understand. They prohibited the use of a telephone and required that the only interface for a ticket with a lottery machine would be the paper slip that people filled out themselves by hand. But what we found, and when the question came up, how in the world did this win take place, we found that it was one of $11 million worth of tickets that were sold in this one location in 3.5 days, which I felt was a physical impossibility to process that many tickets. And I had meetings with the Lottery Commission. They tried to explain it, tried to convince me that you could print that many tickets in that time frame, and had no real explanation for $11 million in cash showing up with one buyer at a location, which prompted many people to think money laundering. And so on. And after a lot of discussions about it, I had a bill that would have prohibited the continuing use of these, what they call couriers. And they described this as these are folks that use an app on the telephone where people can buy through a courier who then goes into the store and buys the ticket for them in person. And that would meet the criteria that you could only purchase a ticket in a brick and mortar facility, such as a 7-Eleven or a racetrack or a convenience store that had a lottery machine. It had to be in person. It had to be with cash or a debit card, no credit cards, and no wire transfers. And none of those was possible in this situation. It seemed like just something was amiss. So I had a bill that would have ended the courier operation. Go back to just having people walk in to the facility and buy a ticket. The bill got out of the Senate unanimously, died in the House, but I put a rider on our budget bill, which is a term that's used for giving instructions to agencies on how they can spend their money. And so my rider said you can't spend your money on these courier services. You have to shut them down. The problem was they just ignored that. They just They said they were told to ignore it. They never said who told them to ignore it, but they did, and they kept operating. And so when we had the hearing in finance, one of the first hearings we had this session, we started that conversation over again. and asking them about it. But this time we had some new folks that showed up for the hearing, an attorney and a watchdog that had worked for the lottery and had been watching their operations, an attorney that's involved in a lawsuit with an organization that claimed they had lost or been conned out of $2.7 million as a part of that $11 million buy. And they brought a ton of evidence about how much more expansive the operation was. What they brought and told us was that this one location in Colleyville was just one of several that operated around the state. Matter of fact, it was just one of 4 that were involved in that big win that took place back in April of 23. And there were 3 others, and they were set up by the Lottery Commission when they sent out orders to their contractor, which is a company called IGT, that did all their logistics work, delivered machines, repaired the machines, hooked them up, made sure everything was running, and they got paid based on the volume of tickets sold. So it had an incentive to have everything working. Well, the order they received was to deliver roughly 60 machines to 4 different locations that week. And they did. They delivered them, set them up, and they were operating in time. And each one of them, and it turns out that the changes that the Lottery Commission had made in their rules, starting back in 2015, a rule change here and a rule change there, completely changed how the lottery system would work. They moved away from a paper-only interface by allowing telephones with QR codes to interface with a lottery machine. The system was set up with the couriers who had no way of determining the age of the person buying the ticket.
Oh, wow. And
you no longer had to go into the brick and mortar facility to buy it. What had also happened was they had allowed the development of QR codes to be used with the phone. So it was totally different as we learned that these 4 locations, 3 of them owned by the same organization, and one of them did not even have a retail license. It had a license that had expired, and it didn't have a bank account. And so they divided up in these locations where they had somewhere between 10 and 12 lottery machines. The algorithm that was developed by an outfit called Spinola in Malta, which would generate 12,800,000 possible combinations of the 9 numbers. That got them all. And they could enter those into the machine using their telephones. And they did this, sold all of them. And the one location that actually had the winning ticket, turned out it was the one that had an expired retail license that was quickly reissued to them. But when the comptroller made the sweep of the bank accounts like it does every Wednesday, there was no money. And so they called them and they said, "Oh, we can take care of that. We'll send you a wire transfer." So they did. They sent them a wire transfer from it. And nobody ever questioned it. Nobody thought a thing about this whole operation, even though it was made public, but nobody seemed to pay attention to it. And it turned out that there was additional evidence being presented. One of the things that a lot we'd heard had no evidence tied to it, but this time they brought information that they had gotten from the telephone of one of the people that had been involved with coordinating this whole thing with the folks within the Lottery Commission. He was in Florida. He'd been in jail a few times, got pardoned by Obama, and had sent a lot of text messages out that we later got. But it included a short video that showed one of these lottery operations where underage kids were actually operating the lottery machines, and an explanation of how it came about happening that it was put together. And so that sparked the interest of digging into it even more. And we ended up getting, what happened when the guy died, his children said, "You know, our dad, he was into a lot of stuff, and we know he had a lot of money, but we don't know where it is. We can't find it." And by that time, the lawsuit was going on with the church that had been swindled out of $2.7 million. And they gave the attorney his phone and said, "Can you help us see if there's anything on here?" Well, it was a treasure trove of text messages and photos and all kinds of information that they sent to us. Matter of fact, the string of text messages between him and people within the Lottery Commission and with the folks running the so-called courier services, when I printed it out, it was almost 2 inches thick on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper that talked about setting this whole operation up.
So how long is this? How much do you think how many millions have been scammed from this, and how long has this been going on?
Well, we don't know for sure how long it's been going on. We know that the Texas Rangers are investigating it now, but there was much more to it. That wasn't the only thing. We discovered as a part of that one of the employees of one of the courier operations had actually won the lottery himself. You know, you'd think one or two or three times would kind of be unusual. Well, he won it 142 times.
Whoa.
142 times.
What was the total? How much the money?
Well, two of them were $50,000 pots back to back, and then a lot of other small ones. So it amounted to a pretty good hunk of money. But the thing about it is, in addition to the swindle job they did with the 4 locations printing all of the numbers, each one of them got their percentage for the sale of the tickets, and then they got the bonus for having sold the winning ticket. So they made a great deal of money. But in uncovering this, we found spurious things that here and there, such as a $1 million check that was paid out to someone in China who had bought it from China, the ticket, and then they sent him a check for it. And there was questionable about how in the world they ever got him to sign the ticket. That had a whole story behind it of whether he actually signed the ticket. But flew in the face of action the Lottery Commission had taken back in 2015 when we had a policeman from New Jersey that called up and bought 2 tickets over the phone, over his telephone. And one of them hit for $10 million. And the Lottery Commission refused to pay him because he used a telephone to buy it. They finally settled it. We went to court and bounced back and forth, and they finally settled on paying him some limited amount. We don't know exactly what that is. But then we found another wire transfer that hadn't been explained yet of about $700,000 that went to someone in the Netherlands. And then we found an operation had been set up where they were selling Texas lottery tickets in the Dominican Republic and in Europe.
Okay, so I've been reading off and on now for a while, rumors. I mean, they're just rumors. I have no fact.
Yeah.
But I've been reading off and on for a little bit now that a lot of these lotto tickets and lotto systems are being rigged by the CIA for the CIA to launder and use it for dark op projects and whatnot. Have you seen anything with the deep state or the intelligence arena?
While I would kind of believe almost anything now, that has not come up. That has not been part of anything that we have found yet. But we have found just an incredible amount of bad behavior, and the fact that what happened could not have happened by just smart people on the outside figuring out a way to beat the system. It had to have been set up from the inside. There was no other way. There was no way they could get those machines without the direct. And I have copies of the orders that were sent from the Lottery Commission to IGT to go set up these machines.
Do you think this is going on in other state lotteries?
I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Exactly.
It was a piece of cake for them to do because nobody paid any attention to what they were doing. To do it, they actually wrote rules that were 180 degrees opposite of what the legislation that they set them up told them to do. They were specifically told no telephones can be used. They set it up to have telephones used. specifically told you have to have a system that assures underage folks cannot buy tickets. They changed that with using the telephone. There were to be no wire transfers. They allowed wire transfers. There were to be no group purchases. This was a huge group. This was coordinated with people in Europe, and who knows? We don't know where all it was coordinated with, but we do know that the Texas people have been ripped off, had millions of dollars stolen from them with this operation. The people in the Lottery Commission not just knew about it, but it could not have been done without them setting it up for it to happen.
Are any of those people like fleeing their job and fleeing the country, or are being deposed yet under oath?
I don't know. It's in the hands of the Rangers. They're now doing the investigation. I took it as far as I could take it. When I had the hearing on the bill, I had a bill, so I reintroduced the bill to end the lottery. This was before I knew all of what I just told you about. I mean, not to end it, but to stop the couriers. And once I heard what happened, we learned in the Senate hearing, I was ready to just file a bill to end it. But our Lieutenant Governor talked me into taking a step at a time, and we went ahead and filed a bill for ending them. But by the time we held the hearing, there was another big win of about $84 million from a facility right near the Capitol. So our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, who was really upset that this was going on, went down to it, took a film crew with him, and went in and filmed what he could, what they would allow him to film. But in that facility, in the back room, they had 44 in one location, 44 lottery machines that they were operating in there.
I think I found the video. I was researching a little bit while you were talking. I think I found it. Let's play this.
This is the location of Winner's Corner, where someone won $83 million on a Texas lottery ticket. And I had a question because Winner's Corner is also affiliated with a courier service who purchased the ticket. It's Jack Pocket is the name of the courier service. Winner's Corner is the name of the retail outlet. Both affiliated or owned by DraftKings. It looked like your normal place you buy lottery tickets. It is supposed to be a commercial establishment that sells everything. You have to sell something. Well, it looks like they sell some games. Some games.
Mark.
Hey, Mark. Nice to meet you. Are you the manager?
I am the manager here.
So help me understand, because we're looking at the lottery now in the legislature because they're up for sunset, which means they have to be renewed. So you sold an $83 million ticket yesterday. Was that through a courier?
Yes.
It was through a courier. Okay. And did the courier buy lots of tickets? Bring lots of tickets, or
they don't
one?
give us individual details.
Okay.
We just process tickets here.
But did you process a lot from him? Were you here?
I don't know. They don't tell us customer information or anything like that.
Okay.
They don't let us give out any information. I do have a media contact for y'all.
Okay,
if you
well,
would like to reach out to them.
A lawyer will probably be better, but we'll see. But anyway, my question is, so how do you know it was a courier then?
We are a courier.
You're a courier?
Yes.
So the courier owns the store?
The gentleman we met behind the counter was just doing his job, but he said he couldn't answer any more questions unless we talked to their attorney. After about 10 minutes, I did talk to one of the attorneys.
Winner's Corner is a licensed retailer by the Lottery Commission, and Jack Pocket, who is my client, is the courier service, and they take the orders and then purchase from Winner's Corner. I don't know if they purchase from other retailers, but they are a licensed retailer by the Lottery Commission.
But do you see, Jay, an issue? And as you know, as a lawyer, you all are up for sunset. I mean, you aren't up for sunset, but the Lottery Commission is. Do you not see an issue where the public might lose confidence if the courier service somehow happened at this one location in the entire state of Texas, sold an $83 million winning ticket, and they also own the location that printed the ticket?
Well, they bought the ticket on behalf of the individual that won.
Right.
And that's just, I do understand the concern.
To conclude, DraftKings bought Jackpocket. Jackpocket owns the retail, and Jackpocket is the courier. And it just so happens, and coincidences happen, strange things happen all the time, but a winning ticket, one of the biggest lottery prizes ever, was sold at this store to a courier for $83 million.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, you know that the intent of the law, when it was passed, the lottery law, it was to be a commercial location, you know, selling a lot of products. Your typical stop-and-go store. Well, this just sells games. They sell games and lottery tickets. Do you think that meets the letter of the law or the spirit of the law?
That's a tough one because I agree with you, Lieutenant Governor, that it is, the law requires a retailer to sell multiple things.
All right, well, hold it there. This is like a major story. Why am I just hearing about it when I called you today about the mosque, and I said, is there anything else you want to talk about? And you said, well, I got a big story here. And what you told me was enough to say, yeah, we want to talk about that. But now we've had a chance to really visit about it, this is a huge story. This is almost like worthy of a movie.
Oh yeah, well, they lied to us because they continuously said we have no authority to make the change. We have no authority to make the change, and that they said that under oath.
To make what change?
We had no authority to get rid of the couriers.
And just so the audience understands, you say couriers. Like if I want to have something sent over here from my office to my attorney, I call up a courier service and they come pick it up and take it to him. All right, is that what you're talking about?
No. Well, it's a little bit different. It's more like you're getting something from Starbucks, and that you just pick up your phone, you go to their app, you make your pick on the app, and you've set up with them how you're going to pay for it. But on that, so you use your app and you pay them for the ticket. Then they go in and pick up the ticket for you, and send you back the receipt that they got the ticket. And then if you have the winning number, then they go in and pick up your prize for you.
Whoa. So they never bring me the ticket. So if I went on my phone and said, okay, I want to buy a Texas lottery ticket, and I pay for it through this app, they go in and buy the ticket for me, so I don't have to walk into the, gas station and buy one.
Right.
Do they ever bring me the ticket?
They're supposed to actually bring you the ticket. I have never bought one from them. I've never been involved in it, so I don't know what extent that they actually do that piece of it. Mm-hmm. But the point is they use a telephone when they do this. And I'll tell you, there's a lot more information if you would go to watch the committee hearing in Health and Human Services. We'll send you a link to it where I laid out a very lengthy layout for the bill that basically started with, I'm going to tell you how this happened. That was the floor.
Okay.
In there.
I'm on your X account.
Okay. So.
Where do I go? Any idea?
Yeah, you got to go to the state website.
Oh, the state website. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, and you'd have to find the committee, a link to the committee. Let me see if I can find that for you real quick.
Well, that's okay. We can direct the audience to it later and even put unless you can find it while I ask you questions. But so I just want to go back to this courier service again, because I was thinking it was like what I use couriers for, so I don't have to drive across town to get a signed document to my attorney. This company, are you telling me, is set up for one reason only? Is that to buy lottery tickets?
That is their front. See, that's the front. The front side of it is to sell lottery tickets using the telephone.
Is it well known? Is it well known in Texas? Hey, there's a company where you can buy your lottery tickets.
Yeah, there are people that play it. Yep, that part's well known. That is just a front because they have these machines that there's no real control over people providing money, which is what happened in that big buy in April of 23, in which there was really, it was kind of like fake money that was being put up by folks from multiple sources, and they just printed 12,800,000 tickets in the 4 locations in a coordinated effort, so nobody printed the same number twice.
But was money changing hands for those tickets?
Not really. There was money there in some cases, and in one case, like the place where the win was, they didn't even have a bank account. They were just pretending to be doing it and printed the tickets.
That place where the lieutenant governor just went, were there machines there?
He was at a different facility.
Right.
We've since learned that there are about 10 of those in the state of Texas that do nothing but the courier service, where they have anywhere from 5 to 44 lottery machines.
That was my next question. So it's one of those locations where they might have 44 machines printing lotto tickets.
Right.
Are they doing enough traffic to justify 44 machines?
Well, I don't see how they do that. I mean, we are still working on getting to the details of specifically how they are doing that and making money. What the thing that has come out is that somewhere in the whole process, it has to be it's being used for money laundering.
And who would be laundering money? Drug money, sex trafficking money,
cartels, anybody that has ill-game money that they can't own up to without getting in trouble. But if they can wave, hey, the thing is, hey, I wagered $11 million.
I won a lottery ticket.
But I only won $3 million. But I won $3 million. I had 11 million they couldn't use. But now they got 3 million they can use and own up to it. That appears to be one of the major reasons, part of it.
Are you, am I the only one sitting here thinking you're treading in dangerous territory, Senator?
Well, I will tell you, I am not suicidal. And I'm a good shot, but I'm not good enough to shoot myself in the head twice.
So it has crossed your mind that you are treading in potentially cartel territory.
No, we definitely are, and no question about that.
Well, thank you also for bringing the story to me. I appreciate it.
No. If you
we're all fine. I'm just joking, but seriously, this is organized crime. This is, yes. I mean, this is either cartel, it's mafia, or now we find out about all the money laundering and scam our own federal government's involved in with USAID. Again, I go back to, how do we know we don't have some rogue intel agency fooling around and laundering dark money for whatever nefarious things they want to fund, color revolutions and who else? But whoever you're dealing with here, they're very powerful. They obviously have a lot of money. They're very organized. And they're very powerful. This is not something being run by, some college kids out of their basement.
No. This is folks who really know what they were doing. It took them months or years to get all the parts in place. And if you look at the press release that came out of the Lottery Commission the morning of our hearing, an hour before we had the hearing, they came out with a press release listing 13 rule changes that they were changing back to be consistent with the law, doing what I've been accusing them of doing that they had denied they had done. All of a sudden, they were going to change those back
to become compliant with the law.
Right. And when we ask them about, well, who's giving you the authority or telling you to do this or not do it, the director pointed to the commissioners and the commissioners pointed to the directors. So we kind of had a circular firing squad between those folks in trying to determine who was really responsible for what their actions were.
And how is your media reporting on this? Is your media?
There's a number of them out there. If you go to a Texas scorecard, Daniel Greer has had a really good summary already, and he's got another one coming out on it. I've interviewed with New York Times Dallas Morning News, Washington Post, and several TV stations on it, and they've mentioned it. And we have moved.
Wow, there it is, Texas scorecard. The expanding scam of the Texas lottery, which, by the way, they're also, let's see here, they're also on to, if I can go back to the head, they're also on to state investigating Muslim compound for fair housing violations. That's today. So that story is getting traffic.
Yes.
This is a big story, and I want to come back to this in closing. This has got to be going on in other states. Why, if this is working so well in Texas, why would you not be doing this in other states?
Well, I know why I'm not, because I got my hands full in Texas.
No, not you. But the people involved. If it's working for them so well in Texas, why would this group or affiliated groups not do this in other states?
I have no doubt that there probably is, because this all started when we went with taking on the national lottery with the Powerball. That's when we started seeing these changes being made in expanding it. So it's well.
I hate to say I told you so to the pro lottery people, but I did a commentary for a Fox affiliate here in the Mid-South, probably around 2006. I did a Fox affiliate when we were talking about doing a state lottery, which we did. And I listed some of the reasons why it's a stupid idea, that all you're doing is encouraging people, many of them who can't afford to gamble, that, you know, here in our state, it supposedly goes to education. A lot of these kids don't, a lot of these people, the money that goes to the kids from the money that comes from the lottery, they got to go to state schools, and they got to stay so long, and the whole thing is a mess. When you end up investigating it, it's a mess. And I am not for the states encouraging people to gamble, because as the studies show, most of the people that end up suffering are the people that can at least afford to gamble.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the same thing. Lottery was sold on the idea it's going to pay for education. Well, by golly, in Texas it brings in about $1.9 billion a year. You know how much education, public education, that pays for?
How much?
3 calendar days out of the year. 3 calendar days. That's it. That's all it pays for. But here's the thing is really concerning. In the hierarchy of gambling, you can start right it down at the bottom of the most benign, bingo. Bingo is part of the Lottery Commission. Bingo is really something that doesn't have a lot of money tied to it. It doesn't have a lot of, it's kind of like a eyes on, hands on kind of thing going on real time, and is probably as benign as it gets. Right above that is the idea of the lottery. You simply pick the 9 numbers, the order of numbers, numbers that yourself, and then there's a drawing with ping pong balls that are carefully guarded and weighed and tested and so on like that, which you'd say, well, that says as little chance for somebody to mess with it as possible. And then, but you see what we have. But then right above that, as you rise in the complexity of gambling, you start having sports betting, you have internet betting, and then you have casinos all over the state. Great opportunity for this kind of fraud to engulf the state.
Absolutely.
Totally engulf it as it expands it. And so I think if we are fortunate enough, the number one casualty of all of this will be statewide gambling for Texas.
Yeah, it should be outlawed.
I was aware of it, but Sands out of Las Vegas bought the Mavericks, bought a big place in Irving, and has been investing millions of dollars to turn Texas into a gambling state. And it looks like that may be something that does not happen in the near future, to the chagrin of some people. But others that have been supportive of it, as they realized the corruption that's in lottery, that they don't want this coming in with the corruption that will go naturally with a statewide gambling operation.
Absolutely. I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, America's greatest enemy next to the federal government is ourselves.
Oh yeah,
we are our own great. I mean, if Islam and the rest will just wait around, we'll eventually destroy ourselves with apathy, passivity, greed, we'll eventually just destroy ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. I've said it many times when working on a bill. If it wasn't for the people, we wouldn't have to write this bill. And that's what it is. But it's generally a small number of people causing a problem that ends up with a bill that affects a lot of people.
Right. But how many people, if they voted on it in your state, how many people were in favor of the lottery? I don't know if you guys voted on it or not.
I think it was very popular.
Exactly.
Nobody was concerned about it. Everybody thought, oh, that's okay. It's not a big deal. It was like, okay, it was under the radar of everybody.
Yep. And when I did my commentary in the Fox affiliate here in the Mid-South, when they were talking about it in our state, I was the minority, warning about why this is a bad idea. So you're right. And so I go back to what I say. At the end of the day, we, the American people, are our own worst enemy because we don't use reason and logic and context and say, hey, how could this go south on us? How could this damage families? How could this end up hurting us as a society? All they heard is how they're going to spend all this money on education, and you're saying the lottery only funding 3 calendar days in a given year. So what a joke that's turned out to be. All right, you're going to come back and give us an update?
Yes, anytime you want me to. I can certainly do that. I'm about to send you. I'm trying to get it to go. I've got the committee hearing that you might want to include in.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put it over send it to me, and I'll post it at worldviewreport.com. Worldview Report's our daily aggregated news site. I'll post it over later tonight at worldviewreport.com where people can go watch it.
Okay, there it went. Just send it to you.
Okay, and will you let me know if there's any updates to come on? Because I want to follow this story, and let's see if this is also going on somewhere else. I want to know who's behind it, right?
Right. Well, I think we'll eventually find, because we do have the Rangers are investigating.
Yeah, the Sinaloa network, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, there is a number of things that the folks that know more about some of these things pointed out to me. That $1 million ticket in which we sent the instrument, the ticket over to China for the person to sign. We broke a U.S. law and a China law because it was a negotiable unit that was worth $1 million. And when they sent it back, they broke the China law and the U.S. law with that just by sending the document back and forth. And by the way, this was a ticket that was kept in one of the Lottery.com's employees' desk drawer for several months while they were trying to find the actual owner of it. And then they sent an employee in to retrieve it and to send it to China. And that's a whole nother story, because he had a hard time getting FedEx and DHL to take it because they wanted to be able to insure the ticket, and they had to put the amount of the insurance on the outside, and they didn't want to do that. So they finally sent the thing over there. And nobody's really sure who actually may have signed that ticket. That's a point of question.
Well, and of course, then you have and I'm just again guessing, if it says the Sinaloa network, well, they already reportedly having a relationship with the CCP to get their precursor chemicals for their fentanyl. So you already have a connection between China, CCP, and some of the drug cartels. I don't know if there's any connection, but I just find that interesting.
I think we're going to find a lot of interesting connections in this thing when it finally, if it is allowed to go all the way with the investigation.
Why would it not be allowed?
I have no idea, but I just keep my finger crossed. One thing, we're in Travis County in Texas, and Travis County is not known for really prosecuting crime to the fullest. They have some. I'm not even sure they have locks on their jail doors.
Wow. Yeah, and yet we're told Texas is this great conservative, wonderful state that is come move to Texas and have freedom, and yet they're not even prosecuting crime in some counties like they should.
Oh yeah, no, it's terrible. And I'll just throw you another one out. You might want to look in or follow and see what comes out of it. But we just had 4 Harris County sheriffs commit suicide, all within a couple of weeks of each other.
Okay, I had that story up on my website or my screen last night to talk about and ran out of time. So so go ahead, tell me about that one.
That's all I know. I just learned about it myself, and I just figured there is something there, because the odds the odds of that happening are greater than the odds of winning the lottery.
Well, there it is, right there. Okay, it's going to take me to another website. Oh, they want me to buy something and click on. There we go. All this advertising they throw up. All right. A troubling trend. 4 former current HCSO deputies take their own lives in 6 weeks. Yeah. What is the probability of that?
Right.
Harris County. Yep.
I think at least one of them was still active sheriff. Young.
Yep. Wow. All right, Senator, keep your head on a swivel, and please let me know when you can come back and give us an update, will you? In the meantime, how do people get to your website? SenatorBobHall.com?
That's right, SenatorBobHall.com.
SenatorBobHall.com. And when are you up for re-election?
This next cycle.
So November?
No, be in 26. Election being 26.
November 26. All right.
So this is running to the end of my 3rd term, and it'd be up. Start running in June. We'll be out of session. We're in session right now, and as you know, Texas legislature only meets every 2 years for 140 days. You know, Will Rogers said that no man's life, liberty, or property is safe when the legislature's in session. So I suggested that maybe what we ought to meet is every 140 years for 2 days.
There you go. SenatorBobHall.com, SenatorBobHall.com. Please keep me posted on this.
God bless you. Thank you for following this.
No, thank you. Fascinating story. Folks, I'm going to put the link that he just sent me at worldviewreport.com tonight so you can watch the video. Worldviewreport.com. What you bet this is going on in other states, right? Wow. What a interview there. All right, before we sign off tonight, folks, remember that was another long format interview brought to you by you. What I need you to do right now, folks, is go over to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Surely you can use some of these products. I know you can use the Swift, that's the new meat, detox your cells. The glutathione, that's amazing, powerful, detox your cells. We got the Bellagrace, we got the Elixir, we got the Gatatana, which is wonderful for your body. Protein, beta carotene, amino acids, the trace minerals, so many important things for your body. Get a subscription to this, to the Bellagrace, to the Numi, to the Gatatana. If you want to get your medications, your emergency medical kit like I have several of these. Remember when I got pneumonia last year? Didn't have to go to the doctor. Just Melissa pulled out the amoxicillin. I was too sick to go to the doctor, to be honest with you. I'm serious. I hadn't been that sick in a long time. But I didn't have to go anywhere because we have our own meds, all right? So again, if there's an emergency, and don't forget, China makes a lot of our pharmaceuticals. So if there's an issue with Taiwan and China, I don't know what you think they might do. You might want to go ahead and get your own meds by going to worldviewhealthcare.com. You'll also find it at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. That'll open up the page. You can even join their wellness plans. Get free prescriptions. The Elite gets you free prescriptions and free supplements. There's the emergency medical kits. It's all there. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. So check it all out. Of course, one of the biggest ways to support us, folks, is our foundation. Where is it? Where's the foundation? Where's the foundation, Logan? There it is at almost the top. Not quite. Third. It moves around? Really? That is interesting. I'm glad you told me that because I felt like the banners were moving on me. Well, there you go. It's not just me then. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. All right, roll the music. Let's call it a night. Hey, Lord willing, I'll be back here Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central for teaching through the book of Revelation chapter 14. Should we go to the dolly cam, Logan? Let's call it a week. Uh-oh, someone's got an itch. Oh, she sees herself on the big screen up there. What a beautiful dog that is, Dolly. Woo, that's a pretty dog. All right, yes, you're distracted by your beauty, aren't you? All right, take a big stretch. All right, that's our broadcast. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
And good afternoon. Welcome to this March 28th, 2025 Worldview Radio broadcast. Joining me today, as is the case on most Fridays, is Dr. Andy Woods. We're going to talk about Bible prophecy and the Middle East. I am particularly excited about today's program because it involves one of my favorite topics, which is, no, not Dolly, the studio dog. That is one of them. It is, can you guess? The fall port. The fall port in Iraq. That's something that Dr. Woods and I have held the line on, that we believe there will be a Eurocentric world government and Iraq and Babylon will play a major role. And when all the people were telling us there's nothing going on over there, that's crazy talk, that's symbolism, we're like, no, I think we trust the Bible. I think we trust the Bible. We trust God enough that we can tell when there's symbolism. The 7 mountains are 7 kings. Yeah, we know the mountains is the symbol, but it's an actual interpretation. The kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is to come. But Babylon is not symbolism. I'm sorry, it's not New York. Jerusalem is Jerusalem. Babylon's Babylon. Rome is Rome. Iran, Turkey, Syria, all these other countries listed. We can take the Bible at face value. You just got to wait a little bit. But Dr. Woods and I have been criticized by people saying, oh, that's crazy talk. You got to believe this and that. That's what it means. And we're like, no, I think we'll wait it out. And we've been telling you about the fall port in Iraq. But guess what? It's in the news. Most Americans know nothing about it, nor the biblical relevance. But for those of us that are prophecy watchers, it's an exciting topic. And it's an exciting topic for many reasons, but one of them is because it kind of tells us where we are on God's timetable, calendar. And it also shows us, once again, you can trust the Bible. When you study it in context, you can trust the Bible. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. Stake my life on it and my spiritual eternity on it. You can trust the Bible. Even when it doesn't make sense, when it doesn't fit into what the world is telling you and other experts are telling you, I'm sorry, I trust God and I trust His word. And today you're going to find out that we were right to do so. You were right to do so. There's a lot of activity in Iraq. Joining me now is Dr. Andy Woods. Dr. Woods, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Brandon, good to be here, ready with you, Babylon about Babylon.
Absolutely. Let's babble on about it. Are you as excited about this as I am, Dr. Woods?
Well, what's important to understand is when we get to that news item, that's a new.
Well, we're going to go to it right now. We're going to go to it straight away. I'm going to it straight away. I can't wait to get down the list of things you sent me. I'm going to it straight away.
Yeah, so we're not recycling something old.
No.
This is dated, you got the date on
March 12th, 2025. And the headline is the $17 billion plan to make Iraq a logistics superpower.
Yeah.
How about that? The Al-Fall Peninsula, a small and seemingly insignificant stretch of land overlooking the Persian Gulf, is on track to become a pivotal hub in global trade. The 20-kilometer strip is in fact Iraq's only access to the sea and is central to the country's goal of becoming a major player in global shipping. I also think, Dr. Woods, I think we're also headed for there actually being a port in Babylon. What say you?
Well,
a harbor, if you will.
Well, you quoted the language of the article. You said not just shipping.
Mm-hmm.
You said global shipping. Boy, that sounds like Revelation 18 to me.
And for those who don't know, Revelation 18 talks about that Babylon has become a place of trade, of commerce. You see the kings there, the politicians. So you see government, you see religion. It's become a dwelling place for demons. And we see on top of that economics, the merchants of the world becoming rich.
Yeah. And the other thing is it talks here in this article about a new maritime, their words, not mine, infrastructure project. And the reason global trade and maritime infrastructure is such a big deal is the two biggest criticisms against the literal Babylon view, you know, that Babylon is going to resurge and enjoy a place of dominance on the banks of the Euphrates in the tribulation are A, it's landlocked, so it's not a maritime city. And B, it's just a tourist place that has no real economic significance. So the reason this whole article here, the title of it is the $17 billion plan to make Iraq a logistics empire, the Al-Fa Peninsula. The reason why this is such a big deal is it's fixing those two issues. It's making Babylon maritime gradually, and it's also restoring her, well, not restoring, but elevating her to global trade significance. And if people just read Revelation 18 and 17 for that matter.
Well, let me go there if you don't mind.
They'll see both of those things there.
Let's go there. And by the way, for those of you that have my book, The Coming Religious Reich, R-E-I-C-H, means Reich means empire or kingdom. If you go to page 59 of that book, now this is before Dr. Woods and I knew each other. That's one reason why Dr. Woods and I hit it off so well when we did finally become friends and talk to each other, is because we were both studying and agreeing on so much independently of each other. Now we have really sharpened. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now we're really rolling here, folks, because now we're researching with each other, sharing our research. But it all started with a foundation of believing key things from our own research independently of each other. Now, if you go to The Coming Religious Reich, and by the way, you don't need to buy it. It's 500 some odd pages, 600 footnotes. You don't need to buy it. If you're a member of the Vault, it is all my books are there as PDFs. Okay, so if you go to worldviewtube.com/vault, you'll find more about how you can join very simply. It's a big part of our general operating ministry budget, worldviewtube.com/vault. And you have my entire book, all my books, there's ebooks, and you have the Religious Reich book. Now on page 59 of this PDF, here's what we find. Harbor. Babylon needs a harbor? ? Revelation 18, verses 17 through 19 has been used by many to say that Babylon needs a harbor. And since it doesn't have one, then the Bible is not literally referring to Babylon. Now here's the passage in Revelation 18, verses 17 through 19. Quote, "For in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by sea, sailors, and many as trade on the sea, stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, 'What is like this great city?' They threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing and saying, 'Alas, alas, the great city in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she is made desolate.'" End quote. And I write, while Babylon does not have a harbor at the time that this book goes to press, does that mean that it will never have a deep harbor? No, it does not. And I'll tell you why. More than 20 years ago, in 1991, it was reported that Iraq's President Saddam Hussein wanted a deep sea harbor. Quote, "It was unacceptable to Saddam that a great country as great as Iraq did not have a long coastline. Over and over, he called he talked about, I should say, he talked about the necessity of building a navy and becoming a seafaring power. Iraq's solution from the sea was a cruel accident of history, he believed, and that one that had to be rectified, a theme he continued to dwell on after his invasion of Kuwait, end quote. As Dan Hayden writes in his book, Iraq and the Crosshairs of Destiny, quote, actually the Tigris and Euphrates rivers converge in southern Iraq and enter the Persian Gulf in Iraq territory. The problem has been that Iran and Kuwait squeezed Iraq into a bottleneck in the mouth of the rivers, and Iraq's attempts to forge a harbor there have been thwarted by the hostile refusals of those two countries. But suppose international pressure were brought to bear upon Iraq to allow perhaps, let me start over. But suppose international pressure were brought to bear upon Iran to allow Iraq to the Shah